focus with Kharadon Overlords 2.0. The boys, the Sky Pirates, have a new book, and there's no better way to talk about all things looting and trading than having two of the best Sky Admirals in the world. I think last time you guys called me like your deck boy, or I'm like the floor cleaner, or I don't know what you guys said, but I'm here to be supported by Gary, goddammit, Percival. How are you, good sir?
Oh, good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So if anyone doesn't know who goddamn Gary is, do you want to give us a quick introduction on why you are the best trader in the mortal realms?
Early adopter, I suppose. I collected them before they even had, like, an FAQ. So was first in there, like the models, kind of pre-ordered, and decided to make the best army I could out of them when it dropped. It just so happened to be a clown car.
So you've been playing for a while. You've been playing since the first book, and you've continued it, and we're glad to have you.
Cheers. And
we've also got a very famous podcaster here. We've got Krohn, or Alex Krohn. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good. Good to be here. I've been playing KO, pretty much since the start as well. Playing them down here in Australia. My claim to fame is that 1 year in 2019 where I did really well at CanCon.
So with an older style book, you almost won the world's largest Age of Sigmar event. So let's not downplay that here. You played very well and very unlucky to lose to the eventual winner. So it's great to have both of you here.
Did the gun line. Also, 1/3 of the Aether-Khemist podcast, where we talk a lot of KO. So, we're going to do a show. Show's going to come up with that tomorrow.
Awesome. So shout out to the Aether-Khemist podcast. If you love your KO and you're enjoying this show and you want to continue hearing all things KO, you want to be listening to the Aether-Khemist, because that is where all of the trade secrets are being talked about in the skies, where me, the little common folk in the free cities, we don't get to hear this type of stuff. Is that basically it?
Yeah, basically.
Basically, you're telling us stuff I'm not going to find out until you drop down the sky and shoot me within 9 inches.
So we keep all the secrets.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, we're going to talk Kharadon Overlords. This faction focus, we're going to talk about list building. We're going to talk about how to tweak and modify and, I guess, get the most out of the book. You guys have been playing for a long time now. This is not the first battle tome you've picked up. You've picked up from the very first book, and you guys actually were some of my guests when we did the first faction focus. So you guys are very, very, very well known to the Kharadon Overlord team. So we'll kind of skip how long you've been playing for. But I guess I'd love to initially know, Gary, what's changed since the initial book? So if I was a KO player with book 1 and now I've picked up my book 2, is it the same book, or am I looking for something that's different as things changed at a very high level?
Every level it's changed a lot. I mean, it's still recognizable, but it's the nuts and bolts, I suppose, are very different. So maybe some stat lines are pretty much the same, but the way that you use the army, the way that the army operates, and the mechanics that it uses to do that has changed greatly. And there's also an extra kind of onus placed on in-game maneuverability rather than pre-game maneuverability. So so it's kind of same shit, different weather, really, isn't it? It's kind of it's still a very fragile army. It's still a very fast army, but the way that it's fragile and the way that it's fast and the way that it shoots have just been tweaked.
You do basically have to throw out all the strategies you knew from the old book. They don't work. They do not work the way they used to. You need to come out the book with a completely
Yeah. I noticed that at
Very
CanCon,
different.
we're watching a few games. I think you, when we're talking at the barbecue, or just when we're hanging out at CanCon, you had mentioned a very 40k reference. You said the old book played like Tau, the new book kind of plays like Dark Elder, and it's very much around movement as opposed to the pure shooting gun lines that you used to have. So I think things have changed, and if you took your KO 1.0 build and kind of brought it into 2.0, you'll do okay, but it's not really tapping into the best of what this new book's bringing. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, you'd have too many Arcanauts for a start.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The Arcanaut gun line it's gone. Just doesn't work.
It's not literally gone. Like, you can still take it. It doesn't disappear into the aether, but it's not viable.
Yeah.
So you used to be able to take the big thing. You used to be able to take these Skyhawks and have a long range unit that will delete one unit a turn, and you cannot take that many Skyhawks anymore, and you cannot buff them to the point where they will do that.
Yeah.
For you.
Okay. And we'll dig a lot deeper into what and how to build the list, but it sounds like generally things have changed and there are new ways to play with this book at a very high level.
Very definitely.
Awesome. So Krohn, while I got you here, talk strength. So if I've just picked this up, because there's many people here who are going to pick up KO for the first time. I saw it on Twitter. There's heaps of people playing KO or building a KO force right now. What are the strengths when it comes to picking up this battle tome? What am I good at as a KO player?
So number one, you're definitely good at shooting. Pretty much everything in the battle tome shoots with a lot of shots, a lot of Rend 1. Pretty good amount of damage too as well. And maneuverability. So you're gonna be able to pick where you fight your opponent, when you fight your opponent. So you can focus your strongest forces at their weakest point, and basically dictate how the battle flows, at least in those first couple turns.
Yeah, you've definitely got some, really cool teleporting shenanigans. You've got some really good movement shenanigans. Lots of shooting. I've certainly noticed that. Gary, anything you'd want to add to that from a strengths point of view?
No, it's pretty much all there. It's just as I say, the nuts and bolts kind of change somewhat, depending with the barracks. How you're doing that is modified slightly, but it's pretty much it. Yeah, you pick your fights.
Yeah,
and the way you do that is your superior mobility usually drops, which is quite a contentious one with the KO community at large. A lot of people saying that you don't need the low drops. Some saying that you have to have the low drops because you need to pick those fights. And you can't let people ignore their game plan early doors. You need to enforce your game plan upon them. But ultimately, both sides of the coin have had success, so there's got to be something to both. But yeah, the strengths are, I suppose, just what I've said, which is the fact that you can do the same thing, but in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, and I think you call that as well that you can customize your force a lot. There's these sub allegiances that we'll talk about a little bit later, but there's a high level of customization to your boats, to your army and how it plays. So there's a lot of flexibility there too.
Yeah, exactly.
What about, Gary, what about the weaknesses? If I was going to pick up KO and, I need to start thinking about maybe some of the blind spots I need to be aware of or maybe build around, what aren't KO good at?
They do not play the attrition game well. In a very specific way. They don't have wounds. When sometimes you make up a list and you are like, I've got 60 odd models and I've got 150 odd wounds and whatever. You don't even come close to that kind of thing. You do not have much in the way of bodies on the ground. A few of the things might be quite tanky. A few of the things might be quite resilient, but physical models and physical wounds on table is very, very low. So you're not playing the objective game. You're not going, right, do you know what? I'll shoot these goblins a little bit, charge in and outnumber them on the objective. It's like, no, I kill them all and I moonwalk onto the objective, or it doesn't happen. You know, it's that kind of. So it becomes a very intensive kind of target priority kind of list, because you can't just, you know, sidle up to objectives and outscore people generally.
Very. I think it's you really need to know what your opponent does and be very aware of the objectives. It can be really easy to get sidetracked and just shoot them off the board, and then turn 2 or 3, you realize, wait, I've got no points here.
Exactly. Yeah, your attrition game and long game is not good.
A few other things that I'd probably call out is traditionally probably not very high armor save. So it's not like you're going to have these, you know, tanky 2+ or 3+ saves around the board.
But it has changed.
Yes, you do now.
Some secret list tech.
Ironclad coming in with a 3-up rerollable save. That's pretty good.
I'm talking about your generic troops. Like, we're not talking Petrifix Elite. We're not talking about Stormcast, but, you know, with, you know, a bunch of rerollable armor saves. Yes, you've got some good armor saves, but your troops aren't traditionally good armor.
They get high spots. They can be re-rolling saves as well. But yeah, it's a resource management thing rather than being, say, Petrifex, who just goes, you know what, ridiculous armors all across the board. You're like, right, this turn, this unit needs to be tanky. Everyone else can go, you know, hang, but that unit will have to be tanky this turn. So you have resource management to make them tanky if you need to.
So it's a strength and a weakness. You'll be able to manage your resources, and great decisions are going to lead to great strengths. Poor resource management is going to lead to you not going to have those abilities. So
it's a very high skill ceiling kind of play style, I think. Whack 60 more tech card on the table and go, that'll probably get me 2 wins. You know,
this definitely isn't a beginner-friendly army, really. There's a lot you need to get absolutely right, and a lot you need to really know your army, and you need to really know your opponent's army, and just the game, how the game really plays.
Yeah. Sounds like, you know, you got to pick your battles as well. So understanding your strengths, working out where to exploit their weaknesses, and leveraging that high movement, that high shooting, and, you know, that target priority is going to be key for a successful KO player.
Yeah, you're always looking for the linchpins. You're always trying to, you know, cut the head off and then deal with the body, as it were.
Love it. I love that analogy. So there's lots of different ways to play Kharadon Overlords. I could take those units in Grand Alliance order. I could take those units in Tempest Eye. But more importantly, if I'm going to go Allegiance Kharadon Overlords, Gary, what do I get by taking this Allegiance? Do I get abilities and traits and good stuff that comes to swearing my allegiance?
You get some. I mean, you don't actually get that much. Though what you do get is good. Don't get me wrong. KO is a very strange book insofar as that a lot of the source is on the War Scrolls. So that's why they, you know, we were talking about it a little bit. That's why they work well in Tempest Eye, and they can work well in Mixed Order. But if you take KO, the main thing you're getting, ironically, is another sub-allegiance and Aether Gold. That's really all you're getting. Aether Gold is a very good mechanic. I do like it. It gives you very short-lived triumphs, but very specific ones. You can pick them on very specific units once per phase. But when you use your gold, so basically every unit that's 10 or more, or a vehicle or a character, gets a gold share once per game, and they can use that to use a triumph from the triumph list. So your common ones are reroll hits, reroll wounds, ignore a battle shock, reroll saves, reroll charge, etc., etc. So you only use one a phase. So this lets you kind of get a very clutch reroll or whatever when you need it, but you have to resource management, because once you've spent it, it's gone for that unit, and you can only use one a phase, as I say. So you can't just plow into an army and go, right, everyone's rerolling the saves. one can.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the skill with KO is working out, even in the list stage, how are you gonna build Ether Gold into the list, or are you just gonna use it as and when, or are you gonna build the list to get extra Ether Gold by taking larger units, or are you just gonna go MSU and not bother with it? But realistically, that is the only faction ability, for want of a better word. The other one is, to all intents and purposes, another sub-faction. It's a customizable sub-faction.
I mean, I'd say the other thing that you get as KO is some really good artifacts. A reason to take the Kharadon Overlords Legions is to get access to those Phosphex bombs and that spell in a bottle.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Very intensive item book.
Yep, cool. Yeah, and you guys do get some stuff, and the Aether Golds are nice. There's certainly some things in the book. You got your Skyports that use those sub-allegiances. So you've got these essentially, you take Kharadon Overlords, and then you're able to take, an additional level of granularity but benefit through this thing called a Skyport, where you can choose, correct me if I'm wrong, you can choose a Skyport, or you can go unskyported and choose your own. And if you do, there's basically these things called, you got footnotes, and what's the other one? You've got
amendments.
Articles / amendments, where basically each of your armies are going to get some additional rules. So some like the Skyports are already kind of determined for you. Although if you don't want to go down that barak-mhornar, barak-zilfin, barak-zon, etc., you can kind of customize and tailor something for yourself. So it's a pretty cool, that's a benefit. I know as a Cities of Sigmar player, I don't have that luxury. I'm stuck with the realm and I'm stuck with the city. There's no customization there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. With the custom Skyport, someone at CanCon did make a custom Skyport and actually did pretty well with it too. There's actually something to be said for that the custom. You can get some good abilities. You don't get locked into an artifact command trait, which is a weakness a lot of those barracks have. The only thing you don't get is the battle line, really, which you can get the Endrin Master for.
Yeah. So we mentioned that there are a whole bunch of barracks. So we'll talk. I think the best way, talking to the gentleman just before kicking off, we said, what's the best way to build lists? Because some armies will start off by building their armies based around their hero. Some people will build based around a temple or that sub-allegiance. I want to take this Stormcast chamber, and then I'll build within the chamber. But talking to these guys, some of the most common ways of building, and certainly not the only way, is to start looking at that battle line choice, because we can start then tapping into potentially what barrack we want to go into, or potentially how we want to start maximizing that force. So what we'll do is we'll talk about list, we'll talk about battle line, we'll talk heroes, we'll talk about everything else, and then we'll kind of bring it all together and customize that with the sub-allegiances, with the command abilities, with the artifacts, with the endless spells. It's probably worth noting that you guys don't get an allegiance terrain piece. So some armies do, you guys don't.
Nah.
Yep.
Cool. You don't have your own set of endless spells. Although there's some cheeky stuff there when it comes to the spell in the bottle artifact that we've talked about once or twice.
Yeah, we can just take anyone's endless spell and just cast it. Want a rat trap? Want a Stormcast Comet? Want a Bone Reaper Predator? We've got it.
Fingers crossed for a Lizardman spawning pool. Come on.
That is one of the coolest artifacts, by the way. We'll talk about it a bit later, but basically in this little bottle, if you take this artifact, the spell in the bottle, you open it up, and once per game, you can cast any endless spell in the game. So even if you're Zench, even if you're, any endless spell that's in the game, you can just I want that. It's awesome. It's so cool. I'm super jelly. I'm so jelly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring up a small little screen, and let's talk about Battle Line. So I've got Kharadon Overlords have probably not the biggest range of models, which is a strength and a weakness. And when it comes to your battle line, I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. Cool. So when we look at your battle line choices, you've got one battle line choice that is available to everyone, which is your Archanaut company. And even if you are Grand Alliance Order, this is a battle line choice for you. However, you do get to unlock some other potential battle lines. So what do we have? So we've got our Endrin Riggers. If your Endrin Master, if your general is the Endrin Master with the drill bit suit, you've got dirigible suit. Sorry, I'm looking at a super small screen to the side here. I've also got your battle line barak-mhornar if you're taking your the Grundstock Thunderers, and then you've got barak-urbaz is taking your Gunstock Gun Haulers if you're urbaz.
Yeah, and you've also got Zilfin frigates.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, and your Archanaut frigates with your if you're barak-zilfin.
Yeah.
So let's start talking battle line. So maybe we'll talk about the generic battle line, which is your Archanaut company. Do we like it? Is it a good choice? How do we build around it? Do we take big units or small units? Krohn, I might start with you. How do we build around the Archanaut company?
So as I said before, they're very different from what they used to be. They're no longer the damage. They don't no longer put out damage, but I find they've still got a purpose. They're very cheap for 10 wounds with a 4+ save. So they're really nice as home field objective holders and screening, early game screening for your boats, so they don't get charged. I'd say there's a spot in lists for one or two units of these guys at around 10 to 20 models, just to be a board presence at the start of the game, which if you run pure ships, you won't necessarily have. It'll stop people from zoning you off of the board as well with horde armies like goblins. And yeah, if when the next objective, they get +1 to hit and reroll battle shock next to an objective, so they can with 10 or 20 models. Yeah, they'll hold it for a couple of turns. They'll be a threat.
I mean, they've got one wound. They got a 4+ save. They're moving 4. Their shooting is, like it's short to medium. Their
very
highest,
short, yeah.
Yeah. Like their smallest range is really 9-inch shooting. The longest range is 18, which is the light Skyhook. Mostly hitting on 4s, mostly wounding on 4s. Some are obviously at 3s. They're not bad. Gary, anything you'd add to the Archanaut company?
They're the most is it divisive? Just the thing that causes the most disagreements in the KO community. A lot of people don't like them. I don't like them. They do have a place, but not as in your three minimum battle line kind of scenario. They are, as Krohn says, you're taking one, maybe at the absolute limit 2, but 3 doesn't seem to have a place because they are just chaff. To all intents and purposes now, they don't do much else other than be above average chaff. Every now and again they'll spike and they might do a little bit of damage, but that's not what you're taking them for. So
it's the wall.
Yeah, exactly. They used to be powerhouses. Now they're just guys that you throw in the way of things. And because of the way that the army works, and the way the garrison works, and the way battalions works, you don't want to take too many of them because they kind of get in the way at the same time, and they don't really move as fast as the rest of the army. So, as Con says, you're taking some as battalion taxes, and you're taking some to kind of screen off boats.
Some board presence, I think. It's good to have just
something.
Have models on the board.
Yeah, I might just pause you there for 1 second. You mentioned something that a new Kharadon Overlords player may not know, and you mentioned the word garrisoning. Now, that's a term that is in the core rulebook, but how does it play out with KO, and why would the Archanaut company impact garrisoning? What does that all mean?
Garrisoning is a way of getting in and out of the boats, which has been applied to them when it was designed for terrain. The issue is you can't move particularly well when you're getting in or out. When you get in or out, that's all you're doing. If the boat's already moved, or there's a lot of stipulations. But to cut a long story short, you tend to be getting out 6 of the boat and then not doing a lot else. You can shoot, obviously, and you can try and charge, but you can't use it like the old book where you kind of get out, move, hop, skip, jump, and use it as a way of getting across the table sometimes. And because garrisoning only works on stuff on foot, you can't use it for your balloon boys like you used to either. So the Archonauts, the small issue we have with the Archonauts is that you can't buff them while they're garrisoned. Nothing really works while you're garrisoned. So you can't give things reroll 1s. You can't give them chemist buffs. You can't do all these things. And so while they're in the boat, they're quite tanky, but nobody wants to shoot them because they're not doing anything. And then when they get out, they're not particularly fast. So you kind of tend to want them outside the boat to begin with as a screen and sidle up to objectives, but then you're sacrificing the speed that the boats jumping around the table can give you.
But I can shoot out of the boats, right?
You can.
Yeah.
Pistols means that you can't land near anything and shoot it in the same turn with any kind of meaning.
With Archonauts, yeah. I think a much better unit to put in a boat to do drive-by shooting is Thunderers.
All right, well, let's wrap up the Archanaut conversation first, and then we'll move to Thunderers. So overall, what I'm hearing is Archanaut's all right. You don't get any horde benefits. So by taking the maximum unit size of 40, you don't get a discount, much like other battle line in the game. Traditionally, you don't get shooting discount. When you've got a battle line shooting unit, you don't get discounts. So Archonauts are all right. You probably wouldn't try to fulfill all 3 battle line choices with Archonauts. And if I was going to take Archonauts, I'm probably not going to be taking large blocks of 20, 30, or 40. I'm more looking at minimum sizes, and I can take advantage of garrisoning and just generally screening across the board. Is that my general high-level understanding of Archonauts?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean,
10
to 20 is kind of your limit because
10 to 20 is good. I probably wouldn't put them in a boat. Keep them on the board.
Okay. And we'll talk strategy later, but just generally, if I'm list building, that's what I'm looking at with Archonauts.
Yeah.
All right, you guys mentioned Thunderers. Let's talk Thunderers. So why is that this is an alternative build, Krohn?
So Thunderers have a really nice 18-inch range gun. It hits really well, hits on 3s, wounds on 4s, rend 1, damage 1, 2 shots. So you can ramp up the firepower on that really quickly. So you'll have 20 of them will put out 40 shots. Even 10 of them will put out 20 shots, which will do a significant damage and can fit nicely into any of the boats, really. And then they've also got special weapons, which don't work so well in the garrison, but work really well when they're out of the boat. So you'll have there's a what is it called? Deck sweeper, which is a 4-shot gun, hits on 4s instead of 3s, but it's very similar to the carbine. There's a cannon which hits on 4s again, wounds on 2s, then 2 damage D3. A mortar which is pretty garbage, but if you have all the deck sweeper, the cannon, and the mortar, they'll all get +1 to hit, which is why you want at least one. If you're taking special weapons, you want at least 1 mortar in that squad, just to give all the other weapons bonuses. And then there's 9-inch range flamer, which makes you a bit more survivable in combat. Which, if you're going to take all the special weapons, you want to be outside of the boat, because that bonus of +1 to hit that I mentioned doesn't work when you're inside the boat. So you can either gear these guys up to permanently be inside a garrison and just drive-by shoot as much as possible, or you can gear them up to be boots on the ground, trying to hold getting stuck into fights, holding objectives, and run maximum special weapons. I've found they put out a lot of firepower, as in I bought 20 of these guys in an Ironclad to CanCon, and they were deleting pink horror units off the board in one turn. So I really think Thunderers is where the pure damage output of this list is.
So you've got, with the gunstrike, and by the way, they're a unit that's available for everyone. But if you are taking the sub-allegiance of barak-mhornar, they become Battalion. And at the moment, they are minimum size of 5, maximum size of 20. What size are you taking?
20. Well,
taking the full 20?
There's an argument for 10s. Krohn takes 20s, but there is quite a viable build, I think, with 10-man units in frigates. Okay. And you just do multiple drive-bys. So frigate, you're doing the first of what Krohn was saying, which is the drive-bys. So you're not taking the special weapons, you're giving them all the long-range guns, you stick them in frigates, and you're just moving 3 frigates around with 10 Thunderers, fulfilling your battle line choices in NAR, around the table, and just keep viewing things off of objectives. Or there's the Death Star, which is Krohn's idea of just taking 20 and just slamming them into people's faces.
Yeah. So we're not taking the 5-man units unless last resort.
Ironically, there is. I do want to try it at some point, but there is an item on one of the boats, which is called I can't remember what kind of compartment it's called, but it's called a compartment. That means gun haulers can take 5-man units. So I was thinking maybe trying at some point maybe 1 unit in, whether it be in NAR or whatever, where you just take a 5-man in a gun hauler and doing a similar kind of thing. It's just like a very compact, cost-efficient little unit that just jumps around and going, decent amount of shots from 5 Thunderers and a gun hauler into a flank, playing an objective, and being a harasser kind of unit. So ironically, Thunderers, I think, could work at almost any kind of level. Even 15-man is potentially an option, because once the garrisoning thing, you can't take too many in a unit, and it still be able to take off and set down. You have to take items to override that rule. So 10-man, you're all good in an Ironclad. However, if you want to get too big, you have to take an item and use an item on one of those boats to then take these big side squads. But then it doesn't really leave much else room in the boat for anything else. So you could maybe argue that you could take 50-man with, X amount of characters, or 10 Arcanauts as well, who can then, get out the boat and screen the boat to help protect the 15-man Thunderer unit inside the boat to do the thing that they are going to do. So while I think some are better than the others, I do think that you can't just say you take 20-man or 10-man and that's the end of it. I think anyone with a plan can make use of almost any size Thunderer unit.
It's a fantastic unit.
Yeah. So big love to the Thunderers. We like it, and it's very worthwhile potentially taking barak-mhornar to untap that as your battle line. Yeah. Awesome. You have anything we want to add on to the Thunderers as well? We kind of covered that one.
I think we got it.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool. Your next battle line choice, potentially, if you are barak-zilfin, is the Arcanaut frigate. Now, this is a ship. This is not a set of troops, quote unquote. This is a boat.
Yeah.
What are we thoughts on taking a boat like a frigate as your battle line? Gary looks like he's going to say something first. Go, Gary.
I could see one. I think because it's Ziflin, there's this kind of slight kind of arguing with each other. Like Ziflin wants to do a kind of thing, and the boats don't really do it particularly well. But having a boat that as battle line does have its own uses, so it's one of those things that you might splash. You might just say, "I'll take 2 battle line of X, whatever it is, Arcanauts, riggers, whatever." But in Ziflin, I might just take one cheeky frigate as a battle line option, just because you do get some kind of fringe things like, because they're battle line, they score in certain missions, or they get to deploy a little closer, or you get to do weird and wonderful things in the game with battle line, and having a battle line monster war machine. Especially if your plan revolves around taking frigates anyway, maybe you can do the Ziflin thing without having to then spend the points on a third battle line. You can just kind of double duty and go, right, I've got a frigate and I'm going to do my little Alpha Strike thing, and it's used a battle line rather than spending points on a completely separate ship. So I think it's a good splash rather than a full out, I'm going to take 3 and off I go.
Yeah. And I'll just call out quickly, Arcanaut Admiral has also called out in the chat. By the way, chat gang's off the charts. They've said that you guys, they're drinking every time that you guys disagree. I think they've called you the argument company. So I had a few laughs. And Arcanaut Admiral anyways called out, the Zilfin also gets an additional boat artifact as well. So we'll talk about what comes with the sub-allegiances too. But obviously if you take the barak-zilfin with the frigate, you're also going to get additional benefits on top of the frigate being battle line.
Yeah.
Krohn?
Yeah. I don't know how to rate frigates yet. I feel the other boats can do what the frigate can do better, almost. If you want transport, or any like the Ironclad, if you want transport and firepower, the Ironclad will do it better. And if you want just pure firepower, you can just spam the gun haulers, and they'll do it. They'll have some really cost-effective firepower. The frigate kind of sits in the middle there, paying lots of points for transport.
Yeah.
What?
It's the jack of all trades and the master of none. If you want specific stuff, you go for the other two.
Yeah.
But it's the jack of all trades, which doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's probably less focused of a role. Saying something is, saying the frigate is you can get 2 frigates for the price of 1 Ironclad, but they're not the same kind of thing. You can't just go take 2 frigates and go, well, that's basically an Ironclad, isn't it? It's not. It doesn't quite do the same role. It doesn't do it quite as good enough either, I don't think.
It doesn't really.
Yeah, but it does have fringe benefits, which it could be in 2 places at once,
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a utility ship, the frigate comes in really well under barak-zilfin. And we have talked about, this is the middle level ship, right? Your gun hauler is the I guess the smaller and the cheapest of the ships, and then your Ironclad is the larger one. And you're right, it is double the price, but the roles are very different. So I'm hearing some arguments for potentially the frigate. You probably don't want to take 2 frigates as your battle line. This might complement your 2 Arcanaut company to 1 ship kind of build. Or we've obviously talked about the benefits of Thunderers as well.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I've seen a good list that won a 1-dayer over here with 3 frigates and 3 units of 10 Thunderers. So that's why I can't discount them out of hand. But at the same time, I think for a lot of lists, KO tends to go more focused. If you want guns, you go for the cheaper option. If you want transport and tankiness, you kind of go for the Ironclad. And as I say, it's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just probably the number 3 out of the 3 boats that are available to you.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
You guys have kind of started segueing into gun haulers. So gun haulers become battle line if you're barak-urbaz. This is the cheaper of the three. At the moment, it's 150 points. Obviously, we don't know if you're watching this in the future if these points will change, but at 150 points right now, what are our thoughts on the gun haulers? They don't get any horde discounts. You just buy one for one. There's no way to combine them. Is this a good battle line choice, and is it worthwhile potentially going into barak-urbaz for accessing this ship?
Hell yes.
Oh yeah, it's very solid, very nice. Just packs a punch for what it is. As a small thing, it packs a solid amount of firepower. It's surprisingly durable with 10 wounds and a 4-up save. It survives around the combat even, and yeah, just complements the rest of the army's firepower by just putting just that little bit more in.
It also makes the Ironclad a bit tankier as well.
Yeah, it gives it gives any other boat a 6-up after save.
Does that, if you took 2 gun haulers, does that interact with each other? Or does it give a 6+ save as well?
No.
It's only on other.
Only on boats that aren't gun haulers.
So it works on different ships.
They pair really well with another ship. I've heard they're also a really good ally. So for your cities or for your fire slayers, I've heard a lot of people taking them and having.
I might full disclosure here and tell everyone that I'm building 2 gun haulers right now for my Tempest Eye. So they don't count as allies because you can take 1 in 4 KO units as a standard troop, and they gain the city's keyword. But I'm very excited. It's very cost effective at 150 points a pop. I really like the ability at once per battle it can add an extra 6 inches to its move, which was pretty cool. It's got a whole range of good shooting, and you're right, 4-up save, 12-inch move, 10 wounds.
The fly high is on the war scroll, not on allegiance.
So let's talk fly high, because that was something that really was a draw card for me. This is on the war scroll, Gary. I love this rule. I hate it against me. I love it when I use it. But tell me about fly high and what makes this special.
Fly high lets you just go anywhere on the table. It's the old deep strike, but every turn. So you can go down where you want outside of 9. There are a few provisos. On certain boats, you can only do it if you are on a certain kind of wound quota. So if you're half dead, you can't suddenly do it. But it's a setup. It's a constant game long setup where you can just go pick my boat up, put it somewhere else outside of 9. Again, as I say, the provisos, you can't do it into terrain, you can't do it bang on top of objectives, and on certain boats, as I say, you can't do it if you're wounded quite a bit. But this is where you get your KO mobility.
That's not on the gun hauler, by the way, the wounded. So if you take the gun hauler, it's just you've got to be away from 9 inches of an enemy, 1 inch from a terrain and an objective. And you could be on 1 wound, and this guy can just, like, instead of making its move, it flies high and basically redeploys somewhere, which is pretty amazing. And correct me if I'm wrong, you can redeploy out of you can fly high out of combat.
Yes, because it's a setup, not a retreat.
And another thing the FAQ has clarified: this does not count as a retreat move. Yeah. So if you're in combat with a Sylvaneth player or a Zench player who has units that say you cannot retreat out of combat with these units, boat won't care. Boat just flies high anyway.
Yeah, because
and there's no proviso such as if the enemy has a flying unit, you can't fly high, such as with the disengage ability the boats also have. Just you can always fly high. As long as you have enough wounds, you can always fly high.
Yeah. And the great thing as well for me is when I look at the attack profiles from the missile weapons, regardless of how you build it, if you fly high and you've got to be outside of 9 inches from your opponent, your threat ranges are at minimum 12 inches. The largest shot you have is 36. So depending on how you build your gun hauler, you're able to move out of combat and continue to still shoot when you've redeployed. And you're going to have a really good threat range when you do so. So that was something that really attracted me.
And because the gun haulers, as you say, they don't have that kind of wound proviso. They're always ticking. They're always doing it. They're a constant harassment tool, which is why I love them. Yeah, often even in games where I've been tabled, but then still won the game, which does happen quite a lot with KO. The gun hauler is the last thing alive, just zipping around, going, "Oh, got another 2 victory points. Come chase me! Come chase me! Oh, another 2 victory points." And then 2 turns later, it gets caught and killed, and you're tabled. But you're like, I don't care. I'm 25-10 ahead. You know. So,
and it was only 150 points. Like that's nothing. That is nothing.
And it
so
does
you could
in combat as well, which means it can literally charge into objectives as well on the drop and try and take off things off of objectives. You know, after you've shot a 10-man screen or a 10-man deck chair unit sitting on an objective, you shoot it and then charge it and then do some mortal wounds as well. You know, they usually break with battle shock, and then you're sat on yours.
You can
I'll come to you in a second, Krohn, but just want to pick up the mortal wound comment that Gary made. That's coming off the bomb rack, which at the start of the combat phase, you can do D3 mortal wounds on a 4+.
Yeah, and that's every combat phase, rather than like bombs used to be only when you got charged.
Yeah,
you charged and every phase. So there's actually weirdly a credible combat threat to the KO army, but that has nothing to do with combat. If that makes any sense, because you can also give the gun hauler one of the best items in the game, well, in the book, or boat artifact anyway, which is a once per game D6 mortal wounds. So you can even
when
use
it charges,
when it charges as an assassination tool. So you got on a 2+, you're doing D6. On a 4+, you're doing another D3 after you've shot. That's usually enough to kill off. Again, this is what I was talking about earlier at the beginning of the show, which is you try and identify the key pieces which make the army work, the opponent's army work, and you try and kill it. The gun hauler is one of the methods that you do this with.
Yeah. You can definitely take 2 or 3 of these things in a list, and they won't disappoint you.
It's solid.
They're sexy. So I think we're hearing Thunderers are good, hearing gun haulers are good, Arcanauts potentially all right. Frigate and maybe take 1, depending on again which way we want to go with battle line. And then the final battle. Anything else we want to talk with gun haulers, or I think we've sung enough praise for these guys.
They do have a weapon loadout choice, which they have cannons or drill cannons.
Drill cannons.
Yeah, I lean towards cannon, like the sky cannons. I don't know about Krohn, but
you basically, I'd say take the cannon. And then, as much as possible, the cannon has 2 modes of firing. You pretty much always want to use the scatter shot, which is
that's the shrapnel. The shrapnel.
Shrapnel shot. Yep.
D6 shots.
It does D6 shots, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, rend 1, damage 2. So potentially 12 wounds coming out of this thing.
Exactly.
Nice.
And because it's a boat, it's getting a gold share. So in those clutch turns, you can charge it in and reroll saves just to tie things up for a turn while you give your army time to do whatever it needs to do. Or you can give it reroll hits when it's going on an assassination run or whatever. The gold share really just tips it over the edge of making it just a great little war scroll.
I think regardless of which sub-allegiance we take, I think we're hearing gun haulers are a good choice to take, even if you're not going to be barak-urbaz. The final battle line choice you have available, and this comes down if you've got the Endrin Master, is going to be your Sky Wardens. Now,
Riggers
or Endrin Riggers. Yeah. You get both of them.
For sure. Yep. Let's talk Sky Wardens first because I've already acknowledged them.
I mean, you can take Sky Wardens. They're an option in the book, but unless you're barak-zon, you're pretty much taking riggers all the time.
Yeah, they're a little fast.
their combat isn't as good as riggers, and their shooting really falls behind. So the Sky Wardens have the biggest problem I find is that 9-inch range. So their pistols are 9-inch range. That which means that when you fly, when you go sky high with a boat and the riggers hitch on, they appear 9 inches away from the enemy, and then they can't shoot. Meanwhile, the riggers have a 12-inch range pistol, which is shooting 3 shots, and your unit of 6 can pump out 18 shots the moment they come down. Riggers have Wardens, they're going to have to wait a turn. Both squads can take the same number of special weapons, so there's no real difference between them that way, and they're both the same points, which are 100 points for 3. So you pretty much you're always taking riggers.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if you're thinking about taking the balloon boys, the guys with balloons, which is our engine riggers versus our Sky Wardens, it sounds like, unless you're taking, as you say, barak-zon, I think I heard you say that.
There's a little argument to be made for Zon. It makes them It makes them better than riggers in combat. It gives them +1 to hit and to wound with their weapons when they charge. But honestly, I wouldn't take an entire skyport just to make one average unit good.
Okay, and it's good. And it's good to know. Right now, Sky Warden's probably not the most optimal choice. And by the way, when we're talking this conversation, this is purely at a competitive level, guys. We're not here. If you really love Sky Wardens, for whatever reason you love them, I'm not here to hobby shame you and tell you your choices are rubbish. This is really thinking about this at a very competitive level based on the synergies and the ways that the armies interact. So you do your hobby. But what I'm hearing right now, Sky Warden's not the best choice. If we're going to go balloon boys, we want to go down towards the engine riggers.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
If we're going down this route.
Yeah. I mean, if you like Zon and like combat and like Wardens, then knock yourself out.
Cool. So there's a build. There is a build there. There is an argument, but in most situations, we probably don't want to choose a skyport for this reason.
Yeah, and for me, the thing that, to add on top of what Krohn said, the landing and shooting thing is obviously huge because it's a shooting army. But the big thing for me is the rigger's ability to heal when the Wardens can't. It revolves around ships. Riggers can heal ships. Wardens can't.
Mm.
If it was a closer thing, even if like Wardens had like 12-inch guns, I think I'd still probably come down with riggers just because that healing is so clutch and your boats are so important.
It's a very nice healing ability. You roll a dice for every rigger, and on a 4+, the boat heals a wound.
Yeah, and there's a common ability that you re-roll that as well, so it's really good.
You can potentially heal these boats 10+ wounds a turn.
I've literally healed a boat from 2 wounds left to full health in a game.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Which one? Which boat? Was it the Ironclad? Wow. Okay.
Because I've got 18 riggers and I've got an Endry Master as well, which does an automatic 3, and the boat does one himself as well. So
yeah, that's 16 healed wounds.
Yeah. So a practically dead boat all the way back up to full health in hero phase, just because riggers are that good.
That's nuts.
All right. I think we've talked battle line, right? We've talked about our Argonaut company. They're okay. Our frigates, maybe 1 in 3. We've talked about gun haulers. Yes, very good. We've talked Endron riggers. They're probably a bit more superior than our Sky Wardens. There are some arguments that would take us down the Sky Warden route, but certainly Endron riggers are better. Our Thunderers are a great choice. Probably want to be going at least units of 10 or more. And they're a great way to put them into ships and do a drive-by, or basically fly around and shoot from the ship and the troops that are garrisoned within inside. Is that a nice little summary wrap up to battle line?
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk heroes. So every good army needs a leader. You've got a couple of really cool leaders and some very interesting ones. So you've got your chemist, the navigator, the admiral. You've got Brock, You've got two different versions of the Endrin Master. Poor Brock. You've got two versions of the Endrin Master, and then you have your Underworld Warband, which comes with a leader and the unit of profiteers that go with them. So where do we start, Gary? What's the first leader you'd want to call out, and why is that person a great choice?
Oh, well, I know Krohn knows exactly which one I'm going to say. It's going to be the Endrin Master in dirigible suit, because
So good.
Is bonkers good. He is so good.
Is that the one that came with the Aether Wars box, or is that the original one?
Yeah, that's the one that came with the Aether Wars box. Yeah. He unlocks the Riggers battle line, which that alone is amazing. But the fact that you add on a stat line which is comparable to Brock, because Brock's stat line isn't bad by any means of stretch of imagination, but he's cheaper than Brock. He opens up battle line unlike Brock. He's comparable, but then importantly, you can have a command trait and you can have an item on him. And some of the items and command traits that he can have are just great on a mobile, a mobile hero in this game. He's a great assassin. I mean, I know my list differs a lot to Krohn's, but he is a great piece to sometimes even combo with the gun hoarders and just go for this kind of like Star Wars Death Star run through the middle of the army and go, right, where's Be'lakor? Right, gone. It's that kind of thing. And he, like a little nuke that just you fire and forget. And because he is a Endrin, he can then catch a ride with boats as well. So he's hyper mobile.
He's got a 3+ save and a ether share, so he can be really tough if he wants to.
Yep.
Once per game, and he's good at shooting too. So that turn he comes down, and even if he doesn't get a charge, he'll put out a decent amount of firepower.
8 shots, mostly Ren D3, Ren 1 and D3 damage on some of them.
Got some good Ren 2 as well.
Yeah, exactly. One of them's Ren 2. He can do anything, and he can do anything well. I mean, even if you just stick him in cover because he's got an item in Duality of Death on a 2-up save with a turn of re-rolling with his gold share, and suddenly you're going, well, you didn't take the objective off me because of my little dude, then he's fine. But he can just as easily go off and be aggressive or even just bully little units. He's got enough shots and enough attacks to go bully little 10-man units on objectives and take objectives on his own. You got I don't know, 10 skinks, whatever, and you can literally just go off and deal with them. He can even deal with 20 marauders in a push. Once you've done shots and charged in and maybe re-roll hits just to make sure you got the damage through, and then suddenly the battle shock takes its toll, and suddenly they're sitting there with no marauders when they had 20 and thought it was fairly safe. He's just a great little piece.
And that's not to mention one of his jankiest, most powerful things he's got is his unique artifact, Phosphex bombs.
Which are ridiculous,
yeah. So it's in the shooting phase. You pick a unit within 6 inches. And important to note, it's not a shooting attack. So you can run and pick a unit within 6 inches. You can do this through an line of sight obscuring piece of terrain that the Demon Prince has just set up. Just in the shooting phase, as an ability, pick any unit within 6 inches. And then you roll a dice. On a 2+, they take a mortal wound. And then if you roll that 2+, roll another dice. On a 2+, take a mortal wound. Another dice. And another dice until you roll a 1. Which
like KO Curse of Years.
Basically, on 1 dice, you're doing a Curse of Years. That's pretty awesome.
The average is 5 to 6 mortal wounds off of this one artifact.
Is that once per game, or is that every game, every round?
Once per game.
Once per game.
But it can spike horrendously.
But when it works, it goes off. I've done at one point 19 mortal wounds to a unit of Banshees. Just walked up to a unit of my Mine Banshees on an objective, and they all just disappeared. 19 mortal wounds. Yeah.
All right. But that's an artifact, right? That's not coming off the war scroll. That is a choice of an artifact that goes with it.
But
is
he's the only guy that can take that artifact.
Yeah, I just want to, like, if someone's looking at their war scroll now going, where the hell is this, what we're talking about? It is an artifact choice that's going to go on top of this model. It's not something that comes standard with the war scroll. But holy shite, that's pretty crazy. Hobby Hero's saying that he's done 15 mortal wounds to 1 unit. Arcanaut Admiral saying he's done 23. Like, some crazy numbers coming out of the chat gang right now.
Yeah. It really helped me in some clutch moments in CanCon, specifically against this demon, Khorne Demon Prince sitting on a massive piece of terrain, making it obscured every turn. So there's nothing my boats could do. This guy just walked up, Phosphex bombed the thing. 14 mortal wounds later, there was no Demon Prince.
Look, for 220 points, you run that into Nagash, you could kill Nagash with some of these numbers. You can kill Archeon with some of these numbers. Alario, you could kill some of the biggest heroes in the mortal realms. But then you're someone like Alex Butler in the chat who rolled a 1. So
yeah,
it goes both ways. Like, realign your expectations. Every time you use this artifact, you're not going to do 19 to 20 odd mortal wounds. But the potential spike, as Gary's pointed, is exponential.
Horrendous, yeah.
Yeah.
He's also got a really nice command trait as well. Not same kind of thing, but something that really ups his damage. He can pick a character at the beginning of the game, at deployment as well. It's not even before, so you can see where the deployment is, and you double all your wounds against that character for the rest of the game.
Made by weapons used by this guy, so it doesn't unfortunately work on the Phosphex bomb artifact.
But it does amp his damage up considerably. You can have turns where you go, right, I need to just do over Nagash. Right, cool. All my shots do double damage into Nagash. I'll charge him. I'll do my 3 attacks, D3 times 2 if any goes through, and I'll phosphor bomb him. Yes, the phosphor bombs don't double up, but that's a crazy amount of damage that one dude can do to a very specific target if he wants to.
It's enough, yeah. And suddenly you've got this 220-point model killing an 800-point model, and flips games, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes I'll just throw it on a key wizard with a key spell, like the teleport spell. Double damage against that. He'll shoot it. Sometimes even kill it for the shooting alone, and then plow into a big block of scary stuff and just phosphor bomb them instead. He's got the tools to reach out and touch multiple things in a turn. You can phosphor bomb one, charge another, and shoot a third.
Oh yeah.
He can literally decimate flanks on his own with a little bit of luck.
All right, so I'm hearing a lot of love with this Endron Master. Any other final calls we want to make on this hero, or do we want to pick another one to chat about?
He opens up the battle line for riggers, which is in my head almost, but not quite mandatory. At least the way I play. Not other people's results may vary, but
yeah. I don't really use riggers that much, but even without the riggers, just for his utility and his damage output and his toughness, that's a 3-up save with a possible reroll. Almost staple of a list. Take this guy as often as you can.
All right, so it's a must choice.
Yeah.
Cool. Who else complements this particular model? Do you like the chemist, the navigator? I mean, in the old book, you never leave home without a chemist, if not 2 chemists. Is that still true today?
It's still the case, but for completely different reasons. Gone.
Yeah, the chemist buff isn't really applicable anymore. The chemist now gives you reroll 1s to wound, and it doesn't work inside a garrison.
Yeah, which is a problem. But he is a lot cheaper.
He is 90 points. He's your cheapest hero. So if you're just looking for a leader just to fill the minimum requirements, it's the chemist.
I mean, his gun's still good. He got nerfed range-wise. So again, it's the same Arcanaut problem where he can't shoot on the turn that he's garrisoned, and he can't land and shoot out the boat most of the time.
Yeah, this book has a 9-inch range problem.
It does. Yeah, 9 inches is just not enough. It just needed another inch somewhere. But it's still a good gun. The buff is still okay. It's just a little bit janky the way you have to use him. I mean, technically, if you have a chemist in a garrison, you can't actually even attempt to do your buff until turn 3. So, because if he starts up in the boat, you can't do it. And then he moves flying high, turn 2, you can't get out the boat. Or so basically, there's a good chance that he'll never even get his buff off. So it's a negligible kind of rule on the war scroll almost.
He didn't usually, for me, the way I run KO with Urbaz, the chemist is not there really for buffs. He's there to be a character, sometimes hold objectives, and for his relic.
Yeah, and the relic. Yeah.
He's your portable spell.
Yeah.
This is the main reason you take him.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so chemist is okay. It's not nearly as important as the model used to be in the old book. Still good, but not as good.
I think to talk about the chemist, you have to talk about his unique artifact, which is the spell on the bottle.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk artifacts when we get to the customization. And we talked about the endless spell coming out, but the chemist is one that is bringing that out.
Yeah,
which kind of makes him from okay up to, again, probably mandatory.
Yeah. Okay. So we definitely want to bring a chemist, but not for the buff, the crazy increases that it used to bring to the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about the navigator? I mean, that was another staple in the old book.
Not really. You didn't see many navigators around in the old book.
Maybe locally where I'm from, I saw a lot of navigators. But is this a good hero? I'm hearing the trepidation here that it's
No. Let's say in the old book he was. You could take him or leave him. He was very okay. He's actually not bad in the new book. I do run him in my list, mainly because the battalion that I like using, you have to take 3 characters, and he is one of the choices. And once you've taken a dirigible engine master and you've taken the chemist, you need another character to take. And out of the choices left, then he is a pretty good one. But the buff works quite well. I like the new way his buff works, or debuff works.
Yeah. So you can pick a flying unit within one enemy flying unit within 36, and I believe it's on a 3+.
Yeah, on a 3+.
On a 3+, it halves its movement.
And on
so
a
you
6+,
can
it does D3 more wounds as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a 3 to a 5, it halves the movement, and then on a 6, it does D3 mortal wounds.
So you can kind of pick a Terrorgeist or a
Maw Crusher?
Maw Crusher, yeah, and just stick it in the corner. Stick it in the corner for the turn.
Yeah, and when you kind of combo it with a few other things, which again we'll get into when we get to specific. It's another thing that you can throw on the pile of stimmy, delay, slow, and you just kind of like, right, I'll deal with this part of the army while you sit there. And then I'll come and deal with you in a minute.
What I really like about the Navigator is the ability to dispel an endless spell and to unbind a spell per hero phase, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's a de facto kind of. It doesn't come up a lot because a lot of the time the big spellcasters are getting buffs beyond what you can really dispel. But it is good. It's a nice little thing just to kind of, as you say, at least throw some dice at something important.
Even an endless spell, right? Because endless spell, you're not trying to beat the casting roll. You're just trying to beat the base number on that endless spell. So, even if you got an Everblaze Comet that's kind of come at you, or something like the Rat Trap from Skaven, the Lightning Vortex, it still gives you an opportunity to unbind that spell if you can't dispel it when it's trying to be cast.
Exactly. I'd rather have
Yeah.
something and at least have an attempt at it than not have it at all.
Yeah.
And he's also a 3-up save as well, which is not much more than a chemist. And chemists are only 4-up save, whereas this guy is a 3-up save. So again, in the hero missions, especially in cover, he is a very cheap, effective way of claiming those objectives. Sat in cover with a 2-up save with an Aether share, so he can make that re-rollable as well.
Yeah, it's relatively tough. That was why you took him in the old book, dude. He's a cheap, tough character.
Yeah,
He's great. That is great. 3-up unbinds, can have movement. For the points value, it's a very good utility piece.
and importantly, shoot out the boats on the turn that it lands.
I think he's also very good in barak-mhornar. If there was a way to make that skyport work, I would really trying to make it work, because it makes it gives the navigator a special artifact which it's really good.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
Shame the rest of Skyport isn't.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this character is the only one that can unbind in your army.
Unless you're
Unless you're barak-mhornar. Yeah.
Okay, so unless you take barak-mhornar, the only way to unbind spells outside of tapping into malign sorcery or something is going to be through the navigator.
That's right, yeah.
Yep.
Cool. I want to talk Brock. I want to talk Mr. Man with the top hat, the fanciest guy in the mortal realms. I did not see him once in Age of Sigmar when the first book dropped. Are we going to see him is he finally finished his holidays, and is he going to be hitting the tables anytime soon? Gary?
Not a chance. The much maligned Brock is even more maligned. They were gradually bringing his points down to the point where I actually took him to one event. I didn't do particularly well, but I took him to an event. And he was slowly coming down to the point where he might have become good. And they left him at the same points, and they made him just abjectly worse across the board. It's so disappointing.
Yeah.
He's one of those kind of atypical characters where the character version or the special character version of a normal thing should be cheaper, because you can't give him an item and you can't give him a command trait. I think special characters in a lot of cases should be cheaper than their kind of comparative version, because that customizability is worth so much to certain characters. But what they did with Brock is not only did they kind of fall foul of that same trap, which is he's more expensive than a dirigible engine master, so why would you take him? But they made him even more specific to a sub-faction, because previously he worked across the board. Didn't matter if he was Zilfin or Urbaz or what. His buffs worked on everyone. They made the buffs worse, and they made them Gnar only. So I can't see any good reason why you would take him unless you liked the model.
And it is a nice model, but yeah, the dirigible Endor Master just does. He's a little bit better in combat and shooting than the Endor Master, but not by enough. And he doesn't bring all the other things the Endor Master brings to the table.
Yeah, no. There is one very, very, very niche way that I think you could use him, and that is in one of the battalions, because one of the battalions you can only take 3 characters, and then you have an option of taking Brock or an Admiral, and there is a certain very specific build where you can make a 1-drop and you end up with quite a few points left over, but you've got nothing really else to spend it on, and you can then spend it on that optional Admiral or Brock, and you might as well spend it on Brock, because then he is keeping you to your 1-drop. If you took an Admiral, you'd still have points left over to spend, which you can't really spend, so you might as well take Brock and then just do this kind of like almost treat him as like a second unitemed dirigible master, and kind of keeping it a pure 1-drop. So there is a very fringe way of you can use it, if I'm honest. But that is a very kind of top end kind of I need a 1-drop and nothing else will do kind of scenario.
Look, I think I could summarize it from the chat really well. They've said they love the model, they love the lore, love the moustache guns. He's hard to justify. And I think talking about the dirigible suit, with currently the 20 points difference between an uncustomizable Brock versus for 20 points less, and it gives me the ability to customize it more through my barrack or through my artifacts. The dirigible suit just seems like right now, in 9 out of 10 situations, just the better choice than Brock. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if it hadn't been Gnar only, I could have maybe seen a bit more love for him.
Just highly justified right now. But who knows what happens? Maybe the points will drop or maybe something will change. But right now, it's just a little too hard to justify when you've got something as good as this Endron Master sitting at the same points value, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got the other Endron Master, which is with the Endron Harness. Now, this is a lot cheaper than the dirigible suit. What's the use case here?
I think he's just he can be used as a solid just combat character. He's a little 5-wound, foot-mounted hero, but he'll pack a punch above his he'll punch above his weight. He'll kill pretty much any other hero at his level, at that 5-wound level.
Yeah.
And he can heal boats, which is nice. He can do the same buff the Endron Master, the dirigible suit master gives to the riggers, which lets them reroll their boat healing.
There is a build I'm playing about with one of these in, as well as a dirigible master, as well as all the riggers, and in a non-specific sub-faction, so like in a customized. And I'm trying the healing thing. I think he has got a place. It's a lot more niche, but it's not discountable. Basically, as Con says, it's a very hitty character that has a very decent ability if you build towards it. And I don't think I've seen anyone try it yet. But I do think there is some kind of space there to experiment with it.
And it can't take the bomblets, because the bomblets is only for the dirigible suit. So this particular Endron Master cannot take the bomblets, which is that 2+ mortal wound that keeps going until you fail the 2+.
No.
Yeah.
But you can. There is a funny little build where you can give his Aya Grungy like 3 shots, hit on 2s, and just have like a rapid firing D3 damage cannon coming out of his face. Which is quite funny. Which I do want to try at some point for laughs. But you can buff him in quite amusing ways, which could probably catch people by surprise.
But he is more of a niche unit as opposed to a must take for the army.
Yeah, agreed.
Every good Sky Fleet needs an admiral. Are you guys taking the Archanaut Admiral in your armies? This is a pretty dense war scroll. When I look at all the abilities and the command abilities, it's almost like rolling out a medieval scroll that just keeps going.
It is dense, but a lot of
so dense.
what he does, you can get in the generic rulebook as well.
Okay, what does that mean?
A lot of those rules, like, he can give a ship reroll 1s to hit if he's embarked upon the ship. But my chemist can do that with volley fire, or he can give your units reroll charges. But my navigator could do that with the same generic command ability.
But that's not a command ability. That's just a general ability, right? Like the Archanaut Admirals reroll 1s to hit for melees that target a monster or a hero.
That's his attacks.
That's his attack.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'll bring up what the ability is called. So he's got 4 command abilities.
2 of them don't.
Master of the Skies, which is the pick 1 sky vessel if that has this model as a garrison on that sky vessel. So this one lets you run and shoot. Okay.
Yes,
this one lets you run and shoot.
That one's useful.
Hang on. Yeah, on my mark fire. That's the one.
Yeah, on my mark fire.
Yep. On my mark, fire. Pick a sky vessel. Reroll hits of ones with the sky vessel in the shooting phase. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's called volley fire. It's called volley fire, and everyone has it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just work on sky vessels; it works on all the units.
Also does repel borders, which is add 1 to the hit rolls made by sky vessels when you pick a friendly sky vessel model with the garrison, or you've got up and them.
But it doesn't repel anyone because you can't use it when you're being charged. You can,
Although,
you can only use it in your own combat phase. So
this one's
you never repel.
a little bit cooler because it doesn't just work on the sky vessel; it works on all the models in the sky vessel. So there's a little idea I've been I'm just dying to try out. So the gun hauler has an artifact that lets it take 5 models in it. So as those 5 models, you take an admiral and 4 of the Endrin masters with Endrin harnesses, and drive this little combat boat of 5 characters into an enemy unit. Activate your +1 to hit, and then the entire boat of 5 characters is just gonna just hammer smash whatever it touched.
Which sounds quite funny, actually.
All right, so what I'm hearing is you guys are not that sold on the Admiral.
Well, what is it? I mean, I think it's epitomised by the fact that, I mean, Krohn went through the other ones, but his charge one, he's got one where you can reroll charges. And you can reroll charges anyway with the command point. But with his, you have to declare it before you roll the dice. Whereas with the generic one, you can do it after you've rolled the dice.
After you failed, you can reroll the dice.
So you can roll the dice and go, oh, I didn't make it. Normal command point. Off we go. Re-roll it. But with the Admiral one, you have to do it before you even pick up the dice. And then you can re-roll it if you want to. And so it's like, it's just so patently worse than the generic version of it. I don't see why it's even in there.
Does it allow you to double tap? Like, does it mean that you could, if you really, really, really wanted to charge, I'm trying to find the light in the tunnel here. I could burn a command point to do it before, and then if I fail it, I burn a different because you can't reroll a reroll.
Reroll,
yeah. So I was trying to find a positive light to this, but there's none. There's none.
The only thing I would say is maybe that means in the handbook that command ability disappears and then it becomes good.
Yeah, we do have a general
thinking that
who knows.
That might be a possibility. Yeah, that once if the generic command abilities disappear, suddenly this guy's command abilities become very useful.
All right, so people watching this video in 6 months' time when the new General's Handbook is out, this argument may seem really weird, but right now in the General's Handbook, you can already do it, but who knows what's coming in the future, we'll never know. But right now, in GHB 19, a bit hard to justify because there's a whole bunch of stuff that is already accessible anyway, if not better somewhere.
I mean, he's tough. He's a tough little character, 6 wounds, 3-up save. Yeah, can hold an objective well.
Attack that you need out of the old book. Everyone always moaned that why he had 2 attacks. Now he's got his 3.
Yeah, he can do damage.
Can I pay for his command abilities using Aether Gold?
You can.
You can.
So maybe if I'm CP poor, I could probably use the Aether Gold to maybe tap into that. I don't know. Is that like maybe a funny route to it?
You can use him as a bit of a CP farm. He's got access to an artifact that gives him a CP. I think on at the start of every turn you roll a dice on a 2+, you get an additional command point. So if you're really starving for command points, you can take one of these guys with that artifact. But
and there's also a
honestly
Aether Quartz kind of thing as well, where you can get
CP back. There's better artifacts to spend your precious quota on, and it's not on this guy.
All right, so I'm going to stop being a dead horse. I've tried to draw a really low bowstring with a long bowstring with a whole bunch of different side pieces. It hasn't worked either way. It sounds like the Admiral is not the best unless you have the force to take it, or you have some amazing list design that we're not aware of yet. So please leave it in the comments if you know a great way to use it. The last hero I want to quickly talk about is the Underworld's Warband, which is is it worth taking, guys? Because you get a hero and you get a unit for 140 points. You must take them together.
I think it's the best Shadespire Age of Sigmar crossover warband there is. Personally,
it's for sure better than a lot better than it was last book.
Why? What makes this one of the best ones?
Well, it's quite cost efficient. The hero doesn't do the same thing as the equivalent hero. So if you take like him and a chemist, they do different things. One gives reroll hits, the other one gives reroll wounds. So you're not doubling up on useless abilities, which is quite nice. The guys that the unit that comes with have got quite a nice mix of keywords, which means that they all go in the boat, even though one of them's a balloon boy. And their weapons are actually longer range than the Arcanaut equivalents, which means that they can actually shoot them on the turn that they land.
Yeah, it looks like they forgot to change these guys' weapons from the original book, so they've still got 12-inch range Arcanaut pistols and 24-inch range, 18-inch range volley guns. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but all that jazz is all better than the Arcanaut equivalent. They've got both keywords, I believe. They've got both marine and so a lot of these buffs that only work on certain things or that let you get into garrisons, all of that stuff works on them.
Yep.
And also they're just the right size to fit in a gun hauler, which can take the compartment. So you can. You were doing with 500s, you can quite easily do with this warband.
And they might actually do better than the 5 Thunders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those additional long ranges compared to the Arcanauts is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can drop down and they'll be in range to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah. The only small downside is that they are Gnar only. That doesn't mean you can't take them in other sub-factions. You can still take them in Zilfin if you want. It's just obviously they're not going to benefit from the sub-faction rules because they got the Gnar keyword.
Yeah.
But they've got a decent profile, decent abilities, decent weapons for a decent price. There's nothing wrong with them at all.
I think they're great. For 140 points, you get a bunch of troops and a hero. I think that's great value. And the fact that you guys have already called out that they can go into a gun hauler. They've obviously got some additional range that some of the standard troops don't have. I think this is potentially a no-brainer, although it could be hard to justify 140 points here versus 150 points in another gun hauler. I guess that's your argument. But otherwise, I don't think you go wrong.
It's not. If someone put one in a list, I would not question it. It's a decent choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've talked about all of our units. I think the only thing we haven't really spoken about is the one behemoth that we haven't spoken about. So we've obviously spoken about the frigate that was a battle line if you're in barak-zilfin. But the other unit that we've got is going to be the Arcanaut Ironclad, which is the biggest ship out of the three. It is coming in at over 500 points. Do we take big boats? Are we going to take, if we're playing a traditional 2,000-point game, are we going to allocate 1/4 of our points into a ship?
Oh, we take the big boats. We 100% take the big boats. If we could, we would take 2 big boats.
And there's a list with 2 big boats, I think.
You'd take two. You'd take two ironclads.
Just to offshoot somewhat, there is a list with 2 ironclads in Tempestar here, which I am building.
And I thought I was being cheeky, just taking 2 gun haulers in Tempestar.
Yeah. But no,
all right. When I first saw the War Scroll, I didn't really like it because the Ironclad used to have a lot of buffs. It used to be this fire base, but also make boats around it better. It doesn't do that anymore. But I've slowly come to realize it just It doesn't need to. It's almost doubled in the amount of damage it puts out. It's just this massive fire base that puts out it can 20 something wounds on average.
Yes.
Every turn it transports your whole it can transport most of your army if you need it to.
It's actually a credible threat in combat, which is hilarious.
Yeah, on a 2+, every round of combat it does D3 mortal wounds.
And
Just to pause for a second, you made a comment and you said that it can transport, a heap of your army. Just the reason you're mentioning that, correct me if I'm wrong, because you can garrison up to 25 friendly models, marine models, in the Ironclad.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Like that's 2 units of 10 Arcanauts. That could be a couple of heroes. It could be, it could be a lot of your army, especially since you're not taking as many troops as like a horde army.
Yeah, and then it also transports 6 riggers and the dirigible guy around because it can have 7 hitches on it.
So those balloon boys, those quote unquote hitches, don't count to the allocation of the 25. Is that correct?
Nope.
It's a completely separate rule now. Yeah.
Cool. So when I'm taking an Ironclad, I'm taking a frigate and a gun hauler. I can do that. Well, not on a gun hauler.
Oh. Yeah, the hitches you can always. Yeah, hitches can hitch on any boat, and you can always take 7.
Okay, so I can always take 7, and they can hitch on any boat, in addition to the amount of garrison models that the War Scroll tells me I can take.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Just for our new people who might be confused, and they might think that the hitches are a part of the garrisoning. No, they're 2 different rules, and you can take more.
The one issue is that you can't do your fly high if you overburden the boat. So I think it's 15 off the top of my head.
15 is the standard, yeah.
On the Ironclad, yeah. So
yeah, the Ironclads, yeah. If there's 16 or more models garrisoned on the Ironclad.
Yeah. But there is an item that overrides that.
Yeah, you can mitigate that with an artifact, allowing you to bring that death squad in. And yeah, the firepower, just off the bat, it's got 8 shots, hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s, rend 1, damage 2. It's potential 16 damage right there. Torpedoes, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3. And then it's top cannon. So it's got 2 loadouts. I prefer the sky cannon again, because it's consistent. So it's either 1 shot, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, rend 2, damage 6, or 6 shots, 3s, rend 1, damage 2. So I like, yeah. As with the gun hauler, I like the scatter. Hang on.
Shrapnel.
The shrapnel
shell. Yeah, I like the shrapnel shell.
The argument for all 3 guns. I would say that, but I'm the same. I prefer the cannon, the sky cannon.
The other one can spike. It's 46 shots, which means you get an average of 14, but it can get anywhere up to,
3-4.
Yeah, it can get a lot of shots.
Yeah, there's only damage 1, isn't it? That's the one that you kind of theoretically it does more consistent damage because you're always going to kind of do something. There's less chance of whiffing. But the problem I have with the multi-shot, with the volley cannon, is the fact that I don't want it whiffing on the very important turn, which usually is turn 1 or turn 2.
Yeah.
You'd rather take the automatic 6 shots from the sky cannon and work that into your plans, because your first couple of turns as a KO player are very important. So it's all well and fine saying over the course of a game, 46 shots every turn works out on average this. I just need it not to be turn 1. I don't want it to spike on turn 5 and do nothing on turn 1.
Yeah. Another nice thing about the shrapnel shell is it's got the same profile as the carbines that it has, so you can basically just roll the dice at the same time if you're doing that. Makes the game go quicker. It's
Good
14
tip.
shot.
Good way to speed up the death of your opponent. Just roll the dice at the same time.
The big thing with the Ironclad is the carbine's going up to damage 2. I mean,
Yeah.
as Krohn said, when you read the war scroll, you're like, oh, fly high is kind of cool, but it lost all of its bells and whistles. It lost its, its flag rule. It lost its kind of batten down the hatches rule, and
It lost its
going through it, and you're going,
sky mine.
Yeah, it lost its sky mine, and you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, damage 2, right, fair enough, all is forgiven. Yeah, it's just a beast.
Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like the Ironclad is a great choice, and I think if I'm looking at the chat, if I think about when I speak to KO players offline, they are very excited to finally see ships on the board more than just some Zilfin shenanigans. We're really going to see a shift in the meta when it comes to more boats on the table, and I am happy to bow down to my Sky Pirate overlords that you guys are.
Yeah. I mean, it's even got a third gun. There's even a third use to that third gun as well. It's got a gun that is basically like a one-off kind of like the one-off shot from the Sky Cannon, but with no secondary fire option. But it gives you +2 to your charge. Is it +2? Yeah, it's +2 to your charge. And there are some items that do work on the Ironclad, which work off your charge roll. So you can make a combat boat build and kind of lean into it if you really want to with the, what's it called again? It's called the Pike, Great Sky Pike or something like that. What's it called? The Great Sky Hook. There you go. Yeah, so you can take a Sky Hook and really lean into the kind of hybridized Ironclad, like the shooty / combat version, which, again, I wouldn't bat an eyelid if I saw someone do it, even though I wouldn't do it myself.
All right. Ironclads, thumbs up. They're good. We've talked behemoths. We've talked battle line. We've talked heroes. We're going to customize it a little bit further with battalions, and then finally some ally choices. And I'm already seeing some great ally choices being thrown out already. You've got a couple of key battalions. You've got 3 battalions plus, I guess, the big battalion. So with the Iron Sky Command, which is a pretty inclusive one where you've got to take the Admiral or Brock, an Ironclad, 3 units of either chemists, navigators, or engine masters, as well as an Archanaut company, as well as 1 to 3 engine riggers, and not having to take battle shock wholly within 18 of the Archanaut Ironclad. Is this a worthy battalion?
It's what I use. I love it.
Why is that?
Because it's an army in a can. It's basically where you get a 1-drop if you want it. It's your low drop battalion. It does force you down a very narrow kind of army build with very little wiggle room. But if you want to go for a genuinely low drop army with good stuff in it, then that is where you go to. The fact that the battalion ability is actually quite useful is just icing on the cake, really. Because it's quite a big bubble when you think about it. 18 inches away from an Ironclad, which is on a fairly big base anyway, covers a massive amount of space. So yeah, because when you add 3 characters in, one of them's going to be your dirigible engine master, which is going to unlock the optional 3 units of riggers to be your battle line. You've got 1 Archanaut unit in there as well anyway, so your battle line's covered. You can stick your boat in, you can stick your characters in. There's very little else you need after that if you don't want to. Personally, I go for a gun holder or 2 as well. So you make it a 2 or maybe even a 3-drop, but it's still a low drop, and that's the way you really you access the kind of low drop kind of alpha builds, I think, with the book.
And a good call out from the battalion as well is it's not just the units in the battalion that's immune to battle shock within 18 of the Ironclad. It's actually the whole anyone with the keyword Kharadon Overlords.
Exactly. So you could even throw in your 20-man. Well, there's Archanauts in there already, but you can throw in other units and still benefit from it. I just think it's a very good catch-all. It goes in any barrack, really, if you really want it to. Maybe not Zon, maybe, but who's taking Zon? But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really good. I mean, it's not the only way to build KO, but it's just a nice, solid, low drop, good ability, efficient points cost, one drop if you want it.
Yeah.
And that's the battalion you would use Brock as well. It's the one battalion, the one time I'd ever use Brock, because Brock is an optional part of that battalion.
Yeah. Although it is 0 to 1 Brock and Arcanaut Admiral, so you don't have to take either of those heroes if you don't want to, but it sounds like he does come in nicely.
Yeah, I think you can end up with like a fairly decent one-drop 1,750 point list. And you're like, oh, what do I spend the other 250 points on? Well, I could become a 2-drop and get something, or I could take Brock, and if there's a meta where a 1-drop is, the be-all and end-all, there you are.
Yeah, great way to
outdrop the host.
Yeah, same thing. I was literally going to say the same thing. If you are concerned about change host and you want to try to shoot off a lot of change before it does its shenanigans, you have the ability here to at least go 1-drop with the change host. You've got 2 other battalions. One is the Iron Sky Attack Squadron, which is 2+ frigates plus 1 Arcanaut company for each of the frigates in the battalion. And that is Arcanaut company units from the battalion can leave the Arcanaut frigate from the same battalion either before or after it's moved. In addition, 3d6 instead of 2d6 when it makes a charge. Thoughts around this particular battalion?
Well,
call it. If you don't like it, we don't like it. It's hot garbage.
And I know one of the guys in the Aether-Cast really likes it, and is really trying to do something with it. But personally, it revolves around. You can use this battalion to get your Arcanauts into 10-man units of Arcanauts into shooting and/or melee range. Great, yeah. Now you got your 20 Arcanauts right there in your enemy's face. Now what? What are they going to do?
You can do some funny, janky things with it, though. I mean, try just because they're janky, not because I think they're necessarily powerful, but because they didn't FAQ it, and it doesn't say normal moves; it just says move. So
charges a move.
Yeah, so you can move the boat in whatever phase, even the enemy's phase. So you can pile in the enemy's phase, which is a move, and then get your Arcanaut company out and sit an objective up under them. Or you could charge a boat, 2d6, and then after you finish your charge, you get your Arcanauts out because that's a move, and then they charge 3d6, basically giving your Arcanauts a 5d6 charge range.
All right, that sounds janky.
So
that sounds very janky.
Yeah, you get your Arcanauts in, and they will 100% get in. And then they'll use their 1 attack, 4s and 4s, no rend, damage 1, and just bounce off of anything as tougher than a wet blanket.
Yeah, it'll be for sneaking objectives, not for doing anything offensively.
All right, so we're hearing the Sky Attack Squadron is However, there is some sneaky list building, janky shenanigans in here that I'm sure in the next opportunity of an FAQ when someone actually looks at this battalion will clarify some of the wording and the intent. I'm certainly, as a tournament organizer, would look at that and maybe make a rule calling. And if this is a tactic that you want to apply, I would maybe speak to the TO to clarify the definition of a move. But according to Gary and according to rules as written, everything he said is true. But is the intention probably what you guys have said? Probably not.
In which case, it goes back down to whole garbage. So.
Yeah. So I would not rely on this as a strategy unless I spoke to a tournament organizer first, so you don't get caught out and then your whole weekend's ruined. Final battalion outside of the master battalion is your Escort Wing, which is 2 to 3 of the gun haulers, 1 Ironclad or frigate, as well as 1 Thunderer unit and 0 to 3 Sky Wardens. And this allows you at the start of the shooting phase to pick one enemy unit for the battalion to focus on. If you do so, you can re-roll the hits of 1 for attacks made by the unit from this battalion that target that unit in the same phase. So basically getting a free command point, but for everyone that's in that battalion. So you're effectively, that's a lot of free re-roll ones.
Oh yeah, this is the battalion I like. This is the battalion I run. So I mean, you go with Urbaz, those 2 to 3 gun haulers. That's your battle line done, and then you can put an Ironclad into this. You can put an Ironclad or a frigate, and then fill that Ironclad with the Thunders from the same battalion, and then you pick an enemy unit, and your big death squadron of Ironclad and Thunderers is rerolling ones to hit just off the bat. Then you spend a Ether share, get rerolls to wound, and yeah. So this is your big 1 Death Star that can teleport around the board, pick an enemy unit, kill the enemy unit. And low drops. So another really good thing of battalions in this book, they give you an extra artifact, which I think you really want.
Yeah. The points you pay for the battalion, it's you don't feel aggrieved in any way. It's like any way at all, because the items are so good that you're trying to max out on it. You could easily take 4 items out of this book alone, not even going into realm artifacts, and just have 4 solid. I would literally play with all 4 of these if I could. So a battalion is not even a tax at this point. It's literally just a low drop, good abilities, extra item. It's all win.
I'd say battalions are almost mandatory in lists. I personally start building my list. You pick one of the battalions, honestly, either the Iron Sky Command or the Escort Wing, and then you build your list. You start building your list around this one battalion, because they give you access to so much more of the book that you just don't have without it.
Yeah. So, and I think hopefully over this discussion so far, people have gotten a flavor of maybe which battalion they'd lead to. Do I really like the idea of these ships and these ironclads and these gun haulers? Do I like this idea of building around, an admiral and maybe some sky wardens and, some different particular troop, but whatever build that you kind of like, I like the sound of this. And that's going to be nicely packaged across one of those 3 battalions. 2 are certainly stronger than 1, but we're now starting to flavor our list, and now we're going to kind of customize it even more. So great call out, Krohn.
Would you mention the 4th, the mysterious 4th battalion or 5th?
The Grand Armada.
No, the one that's not in the book.
Yes.
Oh, what's this?
Which is still technically a legal battalion.
Another one. This is another one then, because I was thinking of the 8th one, but yeah, Krohn's right. There's yet another one as well.
There's a mysterious 5th battalion. That
I said there's a mysterious 4th battalion that Gary's talking about. Now Krohn's got a mysterious 5th one. Let's go to Gary first. What's the 4th mysterious one? Then Krohn, what's number 5?
So the 4th mysterious one is the one from the Aether War box. So, and that is actually quite decent. The Aether War box has the box contents in a battalion, which is a dirigible master, a gun hauler, and 2 units of balloon boys. And as we have discussed, all 3 of those things are very decent. So being able to put decent things into an army that wants additional items and lower drops is actually really, really good.
And I'm going to ask the dumb question: is this match play legal?
It is. Yes, it has points and everything.
And how do we know that it's match play legal? Because it doesn't sit in the battalion. Sorry, in the battle tome.
It has a points value. It is 110 points. So it is the cheapest battalion that you have access to, I believe, at the moment. And as I say, it has all the things that you want to take anyway. And I've made a few lists where you take a double battalion because this battalion is so cheap. And the requirements are very fixed. It's not like you can take a big unit of riggers or anything. It's like literally says 3 riggers, 3 wardens, dirigible master, and a gun hauler, which isn't particularly expensive. So once you add all that stuff in, which you want anyway, you can throw it alongside, say, Sky Command or maybe even the Krohn's battalion, and you can give yourself triple items, maybe even quadruple items if you make a chemist.
If you really push it.
Really push it. I mean, I have made a list where you can get quadruple items by taking this battalion alongside the other battalion with a collector chemist general.
By the way, is the battalion name the Intrepid Prospectors?
Intrepid Prospectors, that's the one, yes.
Cool. And I asked because I just checked War Scroll Builder, and it is 100% for 110 points. It is in War Scroll Builder, so this is no secret list tech. If you're going to a tournament, you can absolutely pick that. Your tournament organizer may not have a copy of those rules, so please, my recommendation is if you are going to use the Intrepid Prospectors, to have a copy that you can provide the tournament organizer and your opponent, given that it's not in your battle tome.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the other thing is it probably won't be legal forever either. These things tend to have a shelf life, but for now, there is definitely a way. If you want to do it, you can take a 4-item KO build if you so desire. So you can get your vent plates, and you can get your phosphor bombs, and you can get your spell in a bottle, and then also importantly take the mandatory sub-faction item as well. So there's your 4, the 3 that you really wanted to, and the tax.
All right, there's a hot take. Aether Wars box. Get yourself the copy of the rules. It sounds like a great battalion.
Yeah. And the ability is quite useful as well. All the stuff in it gets a free 6-inch move before the game starts.
That's really good, actually.
You can use those 6 balloon boys as screens. If you could try, I'll give the turn away because I want to go for a push for a double turn, and so I'll deploy in the corner with all my boats and all my stuff, and then all the stuff from this battalion pushes out, making any kind of potential counter alpha more difficult, or making these teleports more difficult, or sometimes if you're going hard for the kind of like objectives or something, they can get onto the objectives before the game starts. With the first turn move, you're quite deep into enemy territory, claiming objectives. There's no downside to it. It's got good stuff. It's got good abilities. It's got cost efficient points, and and you can do janky things like make a 4-item list.
Awesome. Hot take.
Yeah.
Krohn, what's this last battalion that you're talking about that doesn't sit in War Scroll Builder? I want to hear what janky you've cracked.
Well, the sneaky 5th battalion, at least as of GHB 19, is the old Ether Strike force with the Stormcast and the Balloon Boys and the Gun Hauler, because as of GHB 2019, while we still have that book, it still has legal match play points. It's still technically an option. It's in the old KO book where you it combines the Stormcast prosecutors, the winged golden boys, and a whole bunch of balloon boys, and it lets you shoot one of these units in the hero phase. So you can essentially get a squad of balloon boys, a squad of ender riggers with full special weapons shooting twice in a turn.
It's a bit niche, but it's still decent. It only works because there was no, according to GW, the battalions are still match play legal until something overwrites them, and because nothing's overwritten it.
Wouldn't this book override it though, or is this a Stormcast battalion?
No, it's a Kharadon Overlords battalion, but because this book hasn't.
I'm not seeing it in Stormcast or the Kharadon Overlords War Scroll Builder, so I'm questionable at this one. I imagine this book has overridden the old War Scrolls, but
there's a reason that you can still take the Stormcast. What do you call it? What do you call it? Brotherhood? It's not Brotherhood.
The Warrior Brotherhood is still that battalion is in War Scroll Builder.
Yeah, it's the same kind of reasoning, but it's a little bit more. As I say, it's a bit of a kind of maybe a bit of a lawyering kind of thing. It's like technically available for another 6 months.
Okay.
It'll go away in July.
So
All right. Well, if you guys want to enjoy it, go enjoy it for a couple of months. Do check your tournament organizer to make sure they're okay with that, because it's certainly not in War Scroll Builder, but it sounds like it's currently match play legal, at least for a couple more months, assuming people don't watch us in the future and we're in GHB 20.
yeah.
Got a couple of ally choices. You've got Dispossessed, Fire Slayers, Ironwilled Arsenal, and Stormcast Eternals. Without going through this amazing range of about a bazillion models, is there a couple of things that you guys would tap into? Is ally, and obviously you've got Gotrek as well if you want to pull in Gotrek.
Yeah.
He's obviously someone that can come into any allied order force. Actually, you know what? Let's talk Gotrek first. Is he worth a good investment of 500 odd points in a KO army? Why or why not?
Maybe in Thring. Maybe, but he doesn't really play to your strengths, and he's not really shoring up much of your weaknesses anymore. You can have a strong combat game. I mean, it's not Gotrek strong, don't get me wrong, but it's. I had a list for the old book with Gotrek in it. Because,
same.
Because he shored up a lot of the weaknesses. Your combat game was weak in the old book, and so you could do the clown car thing. You could land the clown car. And you could just run up Gotrek just behind it and go, if you want to come and charge my clown car with everything, you're not getting through it in a turn. And then next turn, Gotrek charges you and then takes you off the table. It worked together. But now with the new KO and the fact that you're hypermobile, it's not just that first turn where you kind of land where you want, do the damage, and then kind of slowly spread out and take the objectives. Now you can be over there this turn or over there that next turn, or even over there the turn after that. You're so hypermobile that the kind of very slow Gotrek doesn't really kind of play to those kind of strengths. So it won't be bad because it's Gotrek, but it won't really kind of synergize particularly well with what you're trying to do as an army.
And he doesn't have a marine keyword, so you can't even put him in a ship to move him around and then like drop him down and like he's in combat.
Yeah, well, he can't be set up anyway, so it's got him coming and going. There's no way that he can keep up with the rest of the army. So he'll do something, and he'll do Gotrek things, but he's not really kind of leaning into what you want to be doing with the army, really.
All right, so Gotrek is not a great option. What about some of the other? Is there anything in there? A few things automatically spring to mind for me, but is there anything in Dispossessed, Fire Slayers, Iron-Willed Arsenal, which is a part of the Cities of Sigmar book, or Stormcast that you would consider bringing into the ally options? The Lord Ordinator is one that kind of comes to mind to me straight away. However, he is going to come out of the ability ranges of those ships very quickly. So it's going to be hard for that Lord Ordinator to be running up the board trying to chase these boats that are just. So there's some good stuff in there, but it's very hard to execute without bringing in other things.
It's the same Gotrek problem.
Actually, I'd like to mention about the Lord Ordinator. I've found a way to actually make him work. To keep up with the boats, with their teleporting, you need a Knight Vexillor.
Yes.
So he's got a once per game ability that teleports one Stormcast unit. So if you take him and the Ordinator, you can teleport your Ironclad and your boats to where they need to be to attack the enemy's weakest flank, and then you can also teleport the Ordinator up with those boats, get that 2+ to hit, and melt some units.
There is some Alex Krohn list tech happening right now. Yep, and I'm just looking at the points cost. So the Vexillor is 120 points, and the Lord Ordinator is 140 points. So that's 260, and you have a teleporting Lord Ordinator who can be in range of buffing your boats.
Yeah, so the list I did with it actually had 2 Ironclads to really capitalize on the Ordinator's ability. And then you put 10 Thunderers in each Ironclad, take 10 Arkanauts as your third battle line, and put in a character of your choice. Cool. And then have this one massive Death Star, block up on a flank, and just hit on 2s, melt some stuff, see how it goes.
Yeah.
Any other choices that you guys would call out from Dispossessed, Fire Slayers, or Iron-Willed Stormcast?
Incantor. the ubiquitous Incantor.
Yeah.
Just because, again, a lot of conversations about KO kind of come circling back to the spell in a bottle. And one of the good choices that you can take in spell in a bottle is the Everblaze Comet. But of course, if it ever gets dispelled, then it's a one-use thing, so you can't recast Everblaze Comet or any of the endless spells. And one of the good tricks with the Everblaze Comet is that kind of that double tap. You kind of like you drop it, dispel it, and go for or you drop it, it goes off again in the next phase. Then you dispel it and try and drop it again and again and again. And you can't really do that trick, but again, you take an Incantor, you can. So you get the spell in the bottle to kind of automatically get it off to start the ball rolling, and then you can use the Incantor to then use the endless spell that you paid for, and keep that trick kind of ticking along maybe. And also an automatic dispel once per game is always useful.
Yeah.
So I was looking at a list where you took Everblaze Comet and a Dice Arcanum. And then again, you haven't got the same problem, which is what I was talking about with Gotrek and the Ordinator and everything, because you can take the Dice Arcanum, and then he's suddenly a mobile character in a mobile army that is trying to do mobile things. So he doesn't feel kind of like a third wheel. He is playing to the army's strengths. He is zipping around. He's a tanky character. He's doing things.
The Dias makes it either movement 12 or movement 16. I can't remember from memory, but it makes it a much more mobile wizard that's just keeping up with your force.
Exactly, yeah.
I always thought the Azeros could be a good choice as well, given you can re-roll ones within a little buff range for the enemy, and you've obviously got your little once per game chaos little bomb.
Potentially. The thing with KO is that you've got re-roll ones coming out the wing wang. Literally, there's I think 6-7 different ways of getting reroll ones across the army.
Yeah.
So the Azeros is always one of those kind of things. Do I stick an Azeros in? In KO, not so much, just because
Not as strong.
Yeah, if you really want the reroll one, you can get it almost without having to build it into your list. It just kind of turns up.
Like the Escort Wing gives pretty much all your strong units reroll ones against units.
I guess it's a type of build, right? If you're not going the Escort Wing, I guess thinking about the Aether Gold and your resources, but I can see where you're coming from. Potentially you're building in redundancy, but I'm sure if you had points, and it sounds like this army has a lot of areas to spend points, maybe spending it on an Azeros is not the best choice for most armies.
Yeah, the thing with the allies as well, as a general rule of thumb, I don't know how Krohn feels about it, is you tend to run out of points before you've got everything you want anyway in your own book. I mean, if you're trying to keep to one drops, then obviously you're trying to find points within battalions. But
I mean, you take an Ironclad and there's 1/4 of your army already disappeared.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's without battalions or battle line or heroes. You've just straight up lost 1 out of 4 of your point allocations.
Exactly. So it's not that you couldn't find allies to help. It's just that they're the last thing you're thinking of, really. And then once you get to that point where you go, well, I've got 100 and something points left over, do I take an ally? The conversation generally comes to, well, do I want to take an ally for the hell of it and make my drops higher and give away that potentially first turn choice in some matchups? Or do I just bulk out another unit to, I don't know, do I bulk out that Arcanaut unit of 10 into 20 instead? Keep my drops as they are and keep the synergies as they are and go from there. So
basically.
They're not reliant on allies, I don't think.
What about something? Oh, sorry, go on, Krohn.
I mean, with allies, I think we should mention Barak-Thring. So that's a sub-allegiance. Their whole big reason you take them is 1 in 4 of your units may be any unit with a Dwarden keyword, and they do not take up your allies' slots, similar to what cities are able to do. So it lets you take, realistically, Hearthguard Berserkers and the hero that lets them teleport out.
The Rune Smiter.
Yeah, the Rune Smiter, allowing them to keep up with your ships and be a constant screen and harassment of the enemy. On the more janky side, it lets you take Hell Cannons and Grudge Throwers. because they still have the Dwarden keyword.
That's janky. So just out of curiosity, if people are looking for the Hell Cannon, where is the Hell Cannon coming from?
It's a Grand Allegiance Chaos unit. It's a Grand Allegiance Chaos unit with Dwarden crew. Who have the Dwarden keyword. So technically, if you want some backfield artillery to dish out some 2d6 mortal wounds,
steal some Chaos Cannons.
Yep.
All right, we're about to get into sub-allegiances in a minute. I want to talk a bit more about this jankiness, but so it sounds like potentially, Fire Slayers, Hearthguard Berserkers, Rune Smiter, maybe some Iron Drakes could be useful from Dispossessed. However, do you have the points to allocate them to your allies, and is it really worth it? That's a big question mark that you guys need to answer, given that there's so many great choices already inherently in Kharadon Overlords. Fair call?
Yeah. Fair call, yeah.
All right. Let's talk sub-allegiances. All right, you want to talk? Let's talk about this jankiness first. Let's go into your rules lawyering technically. We'll start with that first. I was going to go from top to bottom, but I'll start with your shenanigans. So what barrack are you talking about?
I'm talking about Barrack Thring, which I believe is the last one in the book.
So Barrack Thring gives you a couple of cool things. That's on page 73. A couple of cool things is a friendly Skyfarer model is slain within 3 of an enemy. On a 4+, it can fight before it's out of play. There's a whole bunch of different articles, amendments, and footnotes that come with it. When you use increasing stubborn ability from the general, it can fight on a 2 instead of a 4. Okay. Talk to me about this. What do you think about this?
The main thing to say is it doesn't quite work as well as the Cities version does. Because to compare it to Cities very quickly, in Cities, if you take things like Sylvana, trees, and Stormcast or KO even, they gain the Cities keyword.
Yes.
So in this, they're not gaining the faction keyword. They are gaining the sub-faction keyword.
So what we're talking about here is the article, right, where it says after armies are set up, but before the first battle round.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no! So it's the amendment. It's 1 in every 4 units from this army can be Dwarden unit, and do not have to be Kharadon Overlords keyword. Those units gain the allegiance keyword. Yeah, and can't count as a general or towards battle line.
So technically, to use that kind of KO word again, technically they are all allies. They're just not adhering to the ally kind of quotas. So, and they get some access to some of the command abilities and Thring abilities, but they are not part of the army itself. So they do not get Aether Gold. They do not fulfill your battle line. They do not, get all the inherent kind of abilities that you get by Insane Cities. If you took KO and put them into Tempest Eye, they'd get all the things that Tempest Eye get. They are Tempest Eye units with a small exception. The opposite is not true. In Thring, they do not get all the KO abilities. They do not get all the KO benefits. They just are able to be stuck into this sub-faction in greater numbers. But to all intents and purposes, they're still allies.
Yeah.
And one of the FAQ was the question was asked, is that a mistake? Was it supposed to work like Cities and it just didn't? Or is it supposed to be a slightly different thing? It wasn't answered, so we can only assume that they are glorified allies to all intents and purposes.
Yeah. I'd probably want to do a bit more investigation with this Hell Cannon keywording Dwarden. There may be some rules around Grand Alliances that may stop that from being match play legal, but I can see some jankiness that you're talking about.
So technically, the battle tome overrides the core rules in instances, and the ability to take any unit with the Dwarden keyword is legal and has been confirmed by Warhammer community because it was asked on the FAQ and then later by another person who Warhammer community, there was a bit of a discussion on the page. It was eventually answered that KO essentially look for loopholes in the code where they can to help them, and therefore hell cannons technically being allowed is a thing. I don't know why you'd ever take them. They're not worth it. But just the fact that you can have a chaos unit in your order army, a demonically possessed cannon that'll run towards your enemies and shoot some mortal wounds out. It's so stupid. It's so amazing. It's so stupid.
All right, I want someone to run it. If you run the hell cannon, please take a photo. I don't know. This is awesome. Yes. All right, cool. Move along from these shenanigans. You've broken the meta. You've broken my professionalism. Hell cannons, technically, with the Duardin keyword, can be brought in from chaos because it has a Duardin keyword. Although, does that also mean there's that Chaos Warband, the Slaves to Darkness, Underworld's Warband that has a little Duardin in there as well? I don't know if that is another.
They have the Duardin keyword. Oh my god.
Well, check it. That might be another little janky. Because I imagine that they'd have a Duardin keyword because there's a little Chaos Dwarf in that Underworld's Warband. But all right, move along. Any other allies? Sorry. We're talking. I've lost the plot. That's Barak with sub-allegiance over Barak broken. Let's talk about the other ones that aren't as hopefully as janky. Although I'm sure you guys are going to prove me wrong. So you got a couple of other ones. You got barak-mhornar. Barak-mhornar has a whole bunch of other cool things. Start of the first battle round, you can roll the dice for friendly Barak-mhornar heroes in the battlefield. On a 4+, you get an extra command point. You get to reroll battle shock tests for Barak-mhornar units wholly within 12 of a friendly hero. You get the command trait of do not take battle shock with Barak-mhornar units within 12 of the general. You've also got a once per battle. You can change either one hit roll for an attack from the bearer or one save roll for the attacks for the target. Thoughts around Barak-mhornar?
Barak-mhornar's solid. It's probably the kind of baseline for the KO book. It's if you are new to the book and the faction, that's probably where I'd start to cut your teeth and see how you like playing.
It gives you plenty of anti-magic, and it gives you Thunderer battle line, which is the reason, the main reason I think I would take it occasionally to let my Thunderers be battle line and not have to take Arcanauts or Riggers.
Yeah, it's the good one. But yeah, it's not the great one. It's not the awful one. It's the good one.
Okay, Barak-mhornar is good, and obviously Barak-mhornar unlocks the gun stock Thunderers as well as battle lines. There's additional benefits to the artifacts and traits and all that stuff.
Yeah, Brock goes if you really, really want to take him.
Yeah. Barak-zilfin, you're getting a whole bunch of stuff. Barak-zilfin's unlocking your Arcanaut frigates battle line. You can choose one extra sky vessel to have the Great Endrin work, and we'll get to those Endrin works pretty soon, probably straight after this, actually. You get a whole bunch of other things. You can reroll hit rolls of one made by friendly sky vessels at target, a unit that flies. You've got once per battle in the hero phrase, one friendly Barak-zilfin unit can make a normal move. It can run, retreat, and disengage. There's you got the artifact of power. Pick one of the bearer's missile weapons, add one to the hit rolls made by that weapon. On a 5+, you can generate additional command point if the general's on the battlefield. Thoughts around Barak-zilfin?
This is my barrack. This is where I'm in. I love Zilfin. I always did, always do, always will, because I like mobility. I like you got to have damage to back it up, but I think that the mobility wins games. And I'm just an aggressive player, so I like having the janky movement plays and the ability to put your opponent on the back foot almost immediately before you've even put a model on the table. The key with Zilfin is that what hero face move. Everything else is nice. Everything else is, I mean, especially the automatic 6 runs are game winning sometimes because that's across the board. That's everything. That's Arcanauts, boats, the lot. if you run, you go 6, which is amazing in a objective-based game. But the hero phase move is very specifically worded, and we did check this out with playtesters and everyone. And it says that you get to do a normal move.
Yes.
Hero phase. Fly high is instead of a normal move. This means, and has been checked out, that once per game in the hero phase move, you can do a fly high instead.
All right.
So turn 1, you're a 1 or a 2 drop, and the first thing you do is go, I'm going to do my once per game move, and you pick your boat up, you drag your 7 riggers and your dirigible master, and you plonk it 9 inches away from your enemy. You then go into your movement phase and go, cool, no one's moved in the movement phase, I'm now going to move. And you're 3 inches away. And doing all the things that KO can do, but 6 inches closer and at right angles and in the enemy's face.
Yeah.
Even the Arcanauts, the much maligned Arcanauts, the things that everyone doesn't really like taking because they've got 9-inch pistols. You can stick them in the boat and suddenly they're 3 inches away and they're double tapping all their pistols. And you can literally throw the kitchen sink at someone. You can basically my list is riggers, like 18 riggers, dirigible master, the characters, the boat, 10 Arcanauts, and a gun hauler. So your first turn can basically be 2 units of 6 riggers with long range guns moving up, adding some firepower. An Ironclad 3 inches away from the enemy, 10 Arcanauts 3 inches away from the enemy, dirigible master 3 inches away from the enemy, 6 riggers, all that, basically baselining them, shooting them in the face, and then charging. And you can it's horrendous alpha. And also, because of the way that the hero phase move thing interacts, that means before you've done all this, you can drop your spell in a bottle.
Yeah. So you can,
Go on.
Turn 1, you can be 9 inches away from the enemy with a rat trap. That can activate.
The Skaven Vortex, just for anyone who doesn't know what the rat trap is.
Oh, yeah. So that'll do D3 mortal wounds to everything effectively in your opponent's army twice. And then you shoot. And then you combat.
And that's your alpha. I mean, it's not after everyone's kind of thing, but it's the way I play it. It's the way I enjoy it. I think the game is becoming so polarizing in some places. Maybe at top end play, maybe not on the middle tables or on your casual games, but top end. A lot of the time, you're sitting there going, "I can't let you have turn 1 because then you'll get this buff off and this buff off and this buff off and this and this and this, and you'll cover the table with hordes that I can't get through and it means I can't fly high, or you'll try and alpha me back because it's a mirror match or whatever." So having a low drop alpha that can literally get in before they start doing their thing, and what I said earlier, you kind of cut head off, and a few of these things that the KO book can do kind of lean into that. So the Grudge Bearer command trait, doubling the wounds on a specific character, all these things just to really kind of emphasize a strong alpha, and because you're so close after the alpha, a lot of these combat orientated buffs on the ships I like taking as well, because you're then charging in a lot of the time as well.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy. I know a lot of people who have been struggling against Ossiarch Bone Reapers, for example. It's been all about how do you do as much damage as possible without applying their benefits. And before the Mortek Guard put up their shield wall, by the way, that's awesome for KO because that's only in combat, that's not in shooting. So being able to take down a Hallow Heart before its wizards cast all of its, its spells, you're able to really kind of take down these armies that rely heavily on synergies and a lot of heroes, making good units great.
I mean, my personal record is killing 72 handgunners and a Hurricanum turn 1. Which, because the old Hallow Heart 90 handgunners army all sat in there kind of, with the little gap. And the brilliant thing about the Vortex with this particular thing is you play these armies and they kind of measure out their kind of bridge space. So they got this big kind of semicircle around this little spot where they're going to put the bridge and they're going to teleport. And then you put a Vortex in the middle of it. So they can't even bridge. Even if anything survives, they then can't bridge out. Quite funny. But yeah, that is Zilfin. Everything in Zilfin gears towards that kind of hyper alpha kind of thing, which is what I like. The kind of item as well, the item that you have to take is actually even that leans into it. You get +1 to hit on one of your missile weapons, and the Dirigible Master has got a 6-shot Rend 1 gun, which suddenly becomes hitting on 2s, and then if you're shooting at the character that you're trying to grudge, is suddenly damage 2. So you've got 6 shots, 2s and 3s, Rend 1, damage 2, into a squishy wizard or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Didn't think about putting Grudge Bearer on him. Yeah, no, that makes his gun really good.
It makes it really good. He one-shots Hurricanes.
Wow. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, let's not talk about KO and Hellheart, please. Chat, go away. Stop talking about Hellheart KO matchups. Anyone who's heard me talk about my round 4 matchup at CanCon, where basically I had KO drop from the sky 9 inches, shoot off all of my heroes and Hurricanums in a hero scenario, was not a good round for me, but it was a perfect matchup for my opponent. So serious damage to these quote unquote Death Stars that a bunch of heroes hide behind. The Phoenix Guard, the Mortec Guard. These very tough battle line options. And then obviously, add Zilfin is adding even more shenanigans to that.
You can even play it pseudo passively as well, because of the way that everything is worded and the timings of a lot of the abilities. You can do that hero phase, kind of jump into their face, let the spell off, bring over your 6 riggers and your Dirigible Master, and then in your movement phase, jump back to a safe distance and leave the spell there, and a little assassination squad who go off and kill some key pieces, probably die in a turn or 2 maybe, but by ripping the heart out of the enemy in the process, while you kind of, as you say, kind of flip back to prepared positions at the back of the table and just put long range firepower into them and play the more passive kind of version. Again, the gun hauler again helps here as well, because the gun hauler gets a once per game extra move.
Yeah, the additional 6 move.
Additional 6. So he's suddenly going 18 inches. So he's suddenly up there looking for a 6-inch charge, which you could possibly even re-roll because the charge phase is a different phase, and he's got an Aether gold share, and he's going into something, and he's doing his mortal wounds and adding his shots to the kind of fusillade as well. And in missions where you're actually only 18 inches away, it's even worse. So yeah, you end up with like a 1 or 2 drop, which can be just so utterly aggressive. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I definitely want to try out some of that Zilfin Alpha Strike. I've been using Urbaz, but yeah, before the next tournament, SAGT, I'm definitely gonna experiment a bit more with this book and see what works for me.
Bring a Hell Cannon.
The Hell Cannon.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, triple Hell Cannon. Like, come on.
The thing is, I think you're always looking to give away the first turn. You are always looking to give away turn 1. But there's just so many things nowadays that you can't do it. I'd rather have the choice and go, okay, you're a very slow army that hasn't got an alpha and hasn't got any range, and you're playing the kind of foot game. Cool, you can have the first turn, off you go. But as soon as you hit any of these kind of, Slaves to Darkness, armor save everywhere, re-rolling everything, armies.
Petrifex Nagash.
Petrifex Nagash, yeah. You don't want him getting that spell off at all.
Nope.
You don't want a mirror match KO army kind of alpha in it. You don't want eels having anything to do with turn 1. You want eels to be sat in their deployment zone being charged by boats so they can't charge you. all this kind of jazz that you kind of go, right, okay, I'm going to alpha you hard. But the minute you play something a bit more kind of passive, you can go, right, well, you have the turn, and I'll use that hero phase move maybe mid-game.
Barak-zon is next. You guys happy to close out Zilfin? I think we've given enough praise to Zilfin. It was strong in the old book. It's strong in the new book. Much love to Zilfin with all the shenanigans. Zon has some cool stuff. Zon is unlocking nothing. No special battle line choices, but you are getting an artifact where you pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, add 2 to the attack characteristic. You are getting a command trait the first time this general is slain before removing on a 2+. They're not slain and actually heal D3 wounds. And the damage that was done to them is actually negated from the past. You get a whole bunch of footnotes and articles and things like add 2 to the bravery of Skyfarer units within 12. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by Zon heroes that are attacking a hero or monster. Once per battle in the hero phase, one friendly Skyfarer unit that's a part of a garrison of a vessel can leave the garrison, set up hold within 3 of the sky vessel and more than 9 of an enemy. Thoughts around Zon? I think for me, the first thing is it doesn't unlock any battle lines, so for me it's kind of already a bit but I'd love to hear what you guys think.
It's the one that makes Wardens better than Riggers, I guess. Giving you all those bonuses to hit and wound.
They become a credible threat in Zon.
If you go Sky Wardens?
Yeah, Sky Wardens.
Yeah.
You pretty much become completely like down the route of I'm going to have a dirigible master as my general. The list almost kind of writes itself for the first 150, 1,500 points.
Yeah.
I think there will be someone that will do very well with the Zon list. The tools are there. I think it's waiting for the right meta, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's at the moment. But
it's not bad. Like when I look at that, it's not like, oh, this is hot garbage, I would never touch that. But right now, some things in other sub-allegiances are just better. But you're right, there will be a time where potentially having the Sky Wardens, whether it's a points adjustment in the General's Handbook, whether it's a meta shift and all of a sudden, we're not playing a certain style game and now it's more orientated towards another style.
Yeah, as you say, nothing in there is bad. There's just better options. And you've got to wonder, are the other options only better at the moment because of the game that we're playing? As soon as that game changes a little bit, then, I mean, for me, the big miss for Zon was the fact that there is an ability in the book that lets you attack at the beginning of the combat phase, like, it always strikes first kind of ability, and it's not in Zon. For some bizarre reason, I don't know why. But if that was in Zon, even if it was just once per game, I think that would have been just enough to tip it into the kind of, okay, let's give this a good go. But at the moment, with so much always strike first anyway, elsewhere, possibly not. Yeah, I think there is a list, but I just don't think its time is now.
That's all right. And again, there's plenty of KO chats in the WhatsApps and the Facebook. So if someone does have a list, do share it around. I'd love to hear the success stories. But right now, it sounds like there are just some stronger than others. Krohn, anything you'd want to add finally before we move to Urbaz?
For Zon, no, not really. Yeah,
right,
it's all right.
All right, let's stop pushing shit uphill. Not that it's shit, but let's stop trying to make it bigger than it is. Zon is okay. Find a list that works. Urbaz, though, the market city, has a bunch of cool stuff as well. You do not subtract 1 from the bravery characteristics when you spend the Aether gold. The artifact in your shooting phase, you can pick 1 enemy unit and roll 1 dice for each model in the unit. That's within 6 inches of the bearer. For each 6, they take a mortal wound. Pick up to D3 different friendly Urbaz units. for each of those units to start on the battlefield with 1 share of Aether Gold in addition to what they normally receive. You can re-roll 1 for battle shock tests. So you can re-roll battle shock tests for friendly Urbaz units when they're in opponent territory. Once per battle in the enemy combat phase, pick 1 Skyfarer unit that's fought, and they gain 1 share of Aether Gold. And then you've got the Chemist Supreme, which sounds like a pizza, but I'm sure it's a command trait. Krohn, you want to talk about Urbaz? Let's talk.
Yeah, so Zilfin was Gary's Skyport. This one is mine.
And by the way, Urbaz unlocks gun haulers as battle line. Just to wrap that with a little bow.
Yep. So I like to play a bit more of a long game, a more careful game, I guess. As we were saying before, Kharadon Overlords is about the Aether share is a lot about resource management, and Urbaz just gives you a lot more of that resource. So the ability to give D3 units an extra Aether share, even if you roll a 1 for that, your Ironclad's getting 2. So your Ironclad can reroll its saves twice, or get a reroll to wound and then a reroll to save in the following turn. And the letting Skyfarers once per game get an Aether share for being in combat. So it basically means your Thunderers are always going to have 2 shares, because the Ironclad will get charged. The Thunderers are fighting. Now they've got an extra Aether share to continuously reroll to wound every single turn, or for those first 2 turns, which are the most important for me. You can play the long game. You can't Alpha Strike as hard as you can with Zilfin. However, you can still chuck that Ironclad in the Gunstock Escort Wing, which basically fulfills your battle line, because you have those 2 gun haulers, and then I put an extra squad of Arkanauts just for some board control. You can chuck that whole Gunstock Escort Wing into your opponent with all the Aether share, just using it. I like to use it for reroll wounds, because you can already, with hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, you're hitting a lot of your shots. You're wounding on 4s. If with rerolls to that, it makes everything so much more deadly. And you can just keep doing this every turn for 2 or 3 turns. You will be putting out this significant amount of firepower, and just war of attrition. Just because you do more damage than they do.
Gary, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, Krohn is the expert. Ooh.
+1 to Krohn.
Sorry about that. Expert.
Yeah.
I can't add much more other than it's the resource management one. It's the one where you can get tanky as well. It's the tankiest version of KO, because you've got Aether Gold to burn almost. So you keep throwing at the reroll saves. You've got the Death Star kind of Thunderer unit, which you can throw all the gold shares at. It's not my style, mainly because I'm the 20 Thunderers. I would always be too paranoid about losing 20 Thunderers in one go. But that's not saying it's not good. It's just not the way I like to do things. But there is obvious synergies, obvious benefits, and well, say obvious, but the strong ways of using a list like that. And Urbaz is just by far and away the best way to do it, because of that kind of excess of Aether Gold that you can generate just by doing what you were going to do anyway.
I think another really important thing to mention with Urbaz, so a lot of these Skyports force you to take a certain artifact or a certain command trait on your heroes, which kind of limits your access to what the Phosphex bombs, the spell in the bottle, the grudge bearer that you might want to get from the generic list. Urbaz's tax, I'm doing quotation marks. Urbaz's tax is, if you have a chemist as a general, he must take the command ability to allow him to affect 2 units, but you're most likely going to take your dirigible Endrin Master as the general, so you can bypass that. And the artifact tax is a great Endrin work, which you can just stick on one of the gun haulers, allowing your Ironclad to still have, if you have a battalion, allowing it to still have the I forget what they're called. It's the artifact that lets you have fly high with more than 15 models in it. Just look it up. The Ebullient Buoyancy Aid, that one. But that means with a battalion, you've got 2 free artifacts for both your heroes, so you can take the Spell in the Bottle and you can take the Phosphex bombs just off the bat. It's very free to allow you to put in it what you want.
And a lot of KO list building does ultimately boil down to items, and by almost necessity, battalions, because these items are so good.
Yeah.
And Urbaz has the freer range when it comes to that. So it's almost like a hidden buff. It's like another article in this sub-faction. You can pick your items. You can pick these good items without having to go through all the janky hoops that everyone else has to.
They're like Hell Cannon list. Anything we want to add finally to Urbaz before we wrap up the little bow with barak-mhornar?
No, just solid long. It's your long game option. It's
Long game,
just,
resource management.
it's very solid. I love it.
All right. Well, hopefully we don't meet at the tabletop at SAGT. Finally, barak-mhornar, another food sounding almost like a pasta as opposed to the pizza. We have a whole bunch of cool stuff that comes with this. Barak-mhornar doesn't give us any battle line unlocks, but it does give us a whole bunch of stuff like an artifact, which at the start of the enemy charge phase, you pick one enemy unit within 12 of the bearer, halve the charge roll for that unit in the phase. It's pretty awesome. If the general is a part of the garrison of a vessel that is on the battlefield after armies are set up, but before the first battle round begins, you can remove the vessel from the battlefield and set it up again more than 90 just from an enemy unit. Blah 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 blah. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristics of enemies using units while they're within 6 of a friendly barak-mhornar unit. Reroll battle shock tests. There is first turn you can run and still shoot, which is pretty cool. And then finally, once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one friendly barak-mhornar unit that's within 3 of an enemy. The friendly unit fights at the start of the combat, but cannot fight again in the combat unless an ability or spell allows it to fight more than once.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it says more hand ones.
To fight, yeah.
No, it's just a spelling mistake in the book. That's all.
What did I say? Or is it my?
If you're reading off the War Scroll, off the War Scroll Builder, then it says than, but in the actual book, it just says han. There's no T.
Oh. All right. So what do we think of our pasta sounding barak-mhornar?
It's Zilfin light, really. It does everything Zilfin does, but just not quite as good.
The opportunistic privateer is really nice if you're taking turn 1.
Yeah.
If you know you're getting turn 1, then it's good. Otherwise, you just put a sky vessel within 9 inches of the enemy, and they're going to charge it and kill it.
Yeah. So
everything inside it.
Zilfin ability to kind of go, oh, actually, do you know what? You have the turn. Yeah. So it does the same thing, except it doesn't, because it doesn't use the fly high rules. It just does kind of its own kind of rule set it up thing.
Yeah. So you won't be able to get the riggers going on with that.
So you can't drag your riggers, and you can't drag your dirigible. You can't. It specifically states that you can't then move in your first turn, so you can't even then charge reliably with your boat. It is literally everything you're trying to do with Zilfin, but just not quite as good.
Yeah.
The thing going for it is that item. So.
The one thing I love is the item. Yeah. So you can basically it put it on a navigator and lets you pick an enemy unit at the start of every charge phase and just halve their charge rolls. So
you can combine that with the navigator's innate ability anyway to make them half move in the first place. You can throw spell in a bottle and put shards of Valar in as well and make them like a quarter of their move and then half their charge range. You know, there's loads of little things you can do. It's affectionately known as the fuck you staff.
What?
It's affectionately known as the fuck you staff. It's like, I want to charge. Yeah, no, fuck you.
Or as the chat gang has said, barak-mhornar is like barak-nar, but more.
Yeah, the item is very good. Shame the rest of the Barak lets it down.
Yeah.
If that was a generic item, though, the navigators would be so nice.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to start customizing now and bring in some other traits and artifacts? You guys keep going back to artifacts. You keep going back to things that we haven't spoken about yet, but that's okay. I'm a friendly person. Let's talk command traits now. Command traits are going to be determined by your barrack, unless you're going to take a custom fleet. Am I right? Am I confusing myself so long?
Few exceptions. There's a few exceptions.
There's a few exceptions. So if you were go on, please go.
Some of them say like if you take a general that is a chemist, or you just don't take a chemist general then, and then you open up these things.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so it's one of my main gripes about the book, which is that there are a lot of kind of ways that you are forced down certain things at certain times. So a lot of these things you don't end up using if you want to go for a certain kind of like Skyport, like, oh, I'm zipping, right? I'll never use any of these then. Yeah, or I'm going to be, no, I'm never going to be any of these. So a lot of these commands are good, but you have to really kind of cook into your list at the kind of like ground level that if you're going to use them or not.
So let's do some rapid fire choices. So should I be taking an Archnaut Admiral and I need to apply a command trait? There are 6 choices here. We have Wealthy, we have Tough as Old Boots, we have Grudge Bearer, and I've heard Grudge Bearer mentioned a few times in this show already. We've got Cunning Fleet Master, War Wound, and a Scholar of the Archnaut, and an Archnaut. So of these Archnaut Admiral only traits, what stands out and why?
Cunning Fleet Master, probably, if we're going to go with a Admiral.
Okay, so Cunning Fleet Master going with the Admiral obviously benefits the sky vessels.
Mm-hmm. But it's again, it's one of those kind of, I like my movement shenanigans, and this is a movement shenanigan. I just wouldn't be taking an Admiral command trait. So, but if you put a gun to my head and I had to, then that's probably the one I'd go for.
War Wound, maybe.
Yeah.
On a 2+, get a command point an extra command point every turn. Just spam those volley fires and ignore battle shocks.
Yeah. I mean, you can make a very good kind of command point farming kind of build. It's just you've got nothing to spend it on. So again, it might be something like its time may come at some point when we get a completely different swathe of General Handbook command traits. And suddenly you go, do you know what, actually, the Admiral regenerating command points on a thing and getting another one on a 2+ and all this kind of stuff suddenly makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously we've heard Grudge Bearer before, where it says after the armies are set up, pick one enemy hero, double the damage inflicted against that hero. So we've heard a few use cases where that's beneficial.
Yeah, the first couple are kind of like generic across all of them. So you'll see Wealthy, Tough as Old Boots, and Grudge Bearer turn up in other things as well.
And you're right, when we go to the senior engine riggers, so the engine masters only, you can see that Wealthy, Tough as Old Boots, Grudge Bearer are 3 that come with that. But then you've got some other ones, like you've got Grand Master, the Grand Tinkler, and the Engine Professor. Any of those stand out if you're going with an Engine Master?
Not
with Great Tinkerer, but
the Great Tinkerer. It's a Gazer Gungi. It's a mini cannon. It's only rend 1, but it's wounds on 2s, damage D3, and this just makes it 3 attacks instead of 1.
Which is quite funny. And you can even extend the range elsewhere, I think.
Yeah, I think that's an artifact.
Yeah. So you could give him like the rapid firing face cannon if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else?
No. That's it.
All right. Whoa, a bit blown up here. You've got your navigators have 6 different choices. You've got wealthy, tough as old boots, stormcaller, rider of the wind, ride the winds, skeptic, and diviner. If you were going to take a trait for a navigator, do any of those stand out? And if they don't, feel free to call out that it's not a worthy investment in a trait.
I don't know what Con thinks, but skeptic always actually stood out in this one. It actually makes a navigator a genuine possibility.
So you're adding +1 to the spell and unbinding rolls from the general.
I do quite like that. In this day and age with spells being as they are, that's something to be sniffed at.
Could potentially work really well if you were trying to do your shenanigans with the Knight Incantor and the spell in the bottle too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stormcaller, I think, is pretty good. His ability to halve the movement of a flying thing is pretty powerful, and it only goes off on a 3+, which means it's going to fail you at least once in a game.
Yeah, you can't count on it. It's really nice when it happens, but you can't.
So
factor it in.
Stormcaller can basically means it's gonna go off. It's a 3+ rerollable. You can count on it if you get Stormcaller. It's nice. Yeah. It's all right.
Your chemists have 6 choices. You've got wealthy, tough as old boots, grudge bearer, and then you got 3 new entries. You've got the nose for gold, genius in the making, and collector. Any of these ones stand out? So you get additional Aether gold. You can extend the range of the augmentation, or you can choose to have an artifact of power. What? If you choose this general to have an artifact of power, you can choose 1 extra friendly hero to have an artifact of power.
And this is a genuine thing that I have put into lists, which is collector.
The collector?
Yeah. There is. I think there is some genuine play with that, having a chemist general with collector, just because you're such a item-centric book, and the proviso is that the collector general has to have an item himself, and him being a chemist means he's always going to be taking the spell bottle. So it's hardly a requirement at all. So it's basically a command. Do you want to spend a command trait for an extra item, which in this book is a resounding yes.
So you could be going. If you've got a battalion, you could be walking around with three artifacts.
Yeah, which is legitimate. Because again, as I said, I think I said it earlier in the show, you've got 3 artifacts. Your spell bottle is 1. A lot of the time, your barrack obligatory one is your 2nd, and 1 for bombs. So that's where you get your 3rd.
All right. Well, we'll get to artifacts soon. It's not far away. You've kind of like ruined Christmas. You've spoilt it. But anything, Krohn, anything out here?
Nah, definitely collector. If you're not taking Urbaz, you want 3 artifacts.
All right, folks, get your pen out, get your highlighter out, circle collector. This is a do not leave home without it. Your artifacts of power. We are finally here, guys. We've been talking about artifacts for literally second 1. You have a whole bunch of artifacts. The Arcanaut Admiral has a bunch available to them. You've got armor, you've got might, you've got repeater, you've got a whole bunch of stuff there. Do any of those, given that we're going to aim for 2, if not 3 artifacts in an army, do any of those 6 stand out to you as a viable choice?
Not really.
Nope.
General can use command without a command point. You can, once per battle in the hero phase, heal d6 wounds on the bearer. I'll heal 2 to the bearer. You add 2 to the attack characteristics of the volley pistol.
The Admiral is still hot garbage, and his artifacts don't help him.
All right, we did say that. We did say the Admiral is not the strongest choice right now. So why would we give a subpar leader an artifact? Move along. We've got the Navigator. The Navigator has 3 different choices. You've got the Aether-Meter, you've got the Illuminator flare pistol, and we've got an orb. Are we giving a Navigator any of these 3 artifacts? Whether it's +1, so add 1 to the dice roll to determine its effects of the Aether Storm. The first time the Raging Pistol scores a hit on the enemy, you can re-roll hits for the attacks made by other friendly Kharadron, or once per battle, you can dispel and unbind, and it's automatically successful.
I mean, the Illuminator flare pistol has its uses. I mean, you pick an enemy unit, you shoot it, you really hope you hit on that 3+. Maybe give yourself volley fire for rerolling 1s, and then that enemy unit is going to have a really bad day as your entire army rerolls everything to hit and just wipes it off the table. But it's once per game, and it's only if he hits.
But it is decent. Again, it's I suppose it's if you're leaning into the Thunderer Death Star kind of build, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it kind of goes back to the Admiral discussion, and I can see some people in the chat. They're saying, "What about the Ruin of Mark, which allows you to, share some Aether Gold when the hot garbage Admiral dies?" And I think the big thing is that you've already got 2 artifacts that you want at minimum. It's hard to kind of find that extra slot to give to the Ruin of Mark or one of these guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've heard people talking about Ruin of Mark. It's basically you get close to an enemy, you can kill him. You can kill it with what? I don't think it doesn't have to be the Admiral that kills it, does it? It just has to die. And then it explodes in Ether Gold, and everyone picks up a share. Which, like Urbaz, gives you more resources to work with. It's like a Urbaz Light if you're not running Urbaz. But it requires you to take an Admiral.
Which is the main problem,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't want to keep going on about Admirals not being good, but yeah. As for the Navigator ones, yeah, the flare pistol is probably the only decent one, I think, or at least it's the one that kind of plays to the army strength.
Yep.
The only one I'd probably take if given a choice.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those weird ones. It's a really good item that in another book probably would get taken, but in this book it's such an item-centric book, and there are such good ones that it suddenly becomes second fiddle.
Well, that's right.
There's so much competition in this book. There's so many really, really good artifacts that the decent that's pretty good artifacts kind of just get left on the roadside, left on the wayside.
That's fair. Let's just acknowledge it. There's a couple of really strong artifacts, and you're vying for choices. And you probably only have 2, maximum 3, and there's 2 almost auto includes. Like I'm okay to call that out. And then the last artifacts is sprinkle your dish with the spices that you enjoy. So if you want to go in a combat one, or you want to increase your unbind, you want to increase certain things, tailor as required.
Yeah.
Your Endron Master has 3 different choices. So depending on if you go the Endron harness or you go with your little fancy suit, your little Aether Wars one. Let's talk the harness one. So do we like any of these 3? You've got the.
Well, this is where you get the second part of the funny rapid fire face cannon build. Get your 18-inch range face gun.
Oh wow, it's 18.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I thought it was 12.
You're talking about the 8th quartz monocle. Was it monocles? No. Moon lens. Yeah, mono lens. Sorry, I'm looking at a really squishy view where the bearer increases the range of 18 instead of 9.
And then you combine that with the command trait that gives the gun 3 shots instead of 1, and then off you go.
It's fun. It's cool.
But it sounds like we want to give an artifact on the other side, which is a dirigible suit, which is going to be our boosters, our bomblets, or our repulsor field, which sounds like bomblet is artifact number 1 we're going to be walking around with.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, which is the once per battle in the shooting phase. You can pick 1 unit within 6 of the model and roll a dice on a 2+. The unit takes a mortal wound. You roll again, you roll again, you roll again until you roll a 1. So potential of doing 1 mortal wound has a potential of doing unlimited mortal wounds.
I've just got a question about this one. So it looks like you roll a dice and 2+, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound.
Yes.
And then you can roll again. So the mortal wound is allocated, and then you roll again because it says until the unit is destroyed or you roll a 1. That's when it stops. So how does this work with Gotrek? Does he take 1 mortal wound, 1 mortal wound, 1 mortal wound, 1 mortal wound, or does he just take 1 mortal wound and then cancel the rest of them?
Who knows?
Is this a way to really kill Gotrek, or is it just going to bounce off of him? Like, I think.
So Gotrek's Avatar of Grimnir is at if the damage inflicted by the attack, spell, or ability targets the affected this model is greater than 1, you change it to 1. In addition, so if I'm reading that Avatar rule, it says if the damage inflicted by the attack, spell, or ability of the target is 1, you change it to 1. In addition, if the spell or ability would slay this model suffers 1 mortal wound instead. So you're not instantly slaying Gotrek. You're just constantly feeding him 1 mortal wound. So he's going to go 1 mortal wound, save, 1 mortal wound, save, 1 mortal wound, save. That's how I would read this rule interaction, but I'm happy for someone to change my mind.
Because there is also the ward save kind of interaction. So you get to save in between each round of rolling.
Yeah.
It doesn't specify kind of either way. So do you roll? I just don't know. I don't know how it interacts or it interacts at all. You just keep rolling it, and then you roll a 1, and you go, right, I've got 22 wounds. Roll 22 6-up saves.
Yeah.
Or do you roll it after each time? And it wouldn't count.
So my advice would be to make sure that you submit an FAQ ruling. And again, if you go into a tournament, definitely call out the TO and get some advice around how that interaction reads. I would read it as, I mean, obviously simplicity, you just roll 2 up and then you just, do it in a batch. But the way I would read those rules interacting right now is that you do your mortal wound, they make a save. You roll a 2+, do a mortal wound, they make a save. So basically you're constantly feeding against mortal wounds. That's how I would read that interaction at my event.
All right.
But I'm not the TO, so, another TO might want you to roll all your 2+ and then batch up and do 1.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain right now. It's a bit grey there.
The FAQ helped for the KO, but we do still need a few more things clarified. There's still a few very grey areas in this book.
Sure.
I mean, even it doesn't matter which way you cut it, it's still a powerful ability. It's still a powerful rule. So
very.
And we're talking 1 war scroll out of the 700 that are available in this game. Your chemist has 3 different choices. You've got your emergency vent plate. You've got the spell in the bottle, which we talked about again and again. Spell in the bottle sounds wonderful because you pick an endless spell. You've got to pay for those endless spells, guys. You must pay for the points. And once per battle, the bearer can automatically cast it, and you don't have to roll the casting, and it can't be unbound. Now we've talked a little bit about different choices that you might want to take. We've talked about the Skaven Vortex Lightning. We've talked about the Stormcast Everblaze Comet. What are some other good choices that you may want to consider with a spell in the bottle?
Well, Krohn takes a different one. I know that, doesn't he?
So I take to CanCon. I took the Realm Scourge Rupture,
which is a Slaves to Darkness spell.
Slaves to Darkness. So it's the base size is it's essentially a wall, and it only moves in one direction. And any unit that moves over takes D3 mortal wounds, and its movement is halved. So I really like the fact that it only goes one direction, so that you can't have it turned back around and used on you. It does some mortal wounds, but also the half movement I find is really useful. So the thing I like to do is you set up all your boats in a corner because they're going to teleport around anyway. Enemy comes at you, hits your screen, hits your boats. You assuming you survive. Really, I build it to survive. You can then cast this endless spell out, hit the majority of their big units, teleport your boats away, and now their big Alpha Strike unit, Terrorgeist, Archaon, whatever it may be, is stuck with half movement in that corner where you used to be, while you're in their back line shooting all their little squishy objective holders. Yeah, it's a bait and switch.
Nice. Good call out. So we've got, any other endless spells we want to call out? And obviously they're, again, seasoned for taste, but I know I like the Bullfire Taurus from the Beast of Chaos to change the activation walls of fighting.
That's the one if you were going to go on. If you want to make the one work, that's the thing that you probably end up whacking in it. I like Shards of Alar as well. I think there's some play in there. Just because it's a very similar kind of thing to what Krohn was saying with the Realmscape Rupture. You're just slowing them down and letting you do your thing and leaning into the whole kind of I'm mobile and you're not.
Depending on how prevalent Zench is, I think the Darkfire Rift is going to be very useful as well.
Yep.
So we all know Zench puts out this Darkfire Rift, and it does D3 mortal wounds.
D3 mortal wounds plus one for every wizard.
Yeah, so Zench will throw that out at you, and they've got all their wizards around you, so this thing is going to do a ton of damage to your army. But if you do it back to them, and it's surrounded by their wizards, now all their things, all of their units are taking D3 plus 4, D3 plus 5 mortal wounds, just because you got pink horrors, you got a Lord of Change, you got a Gaunt Summoner. Depending on how prevalent the Zench meta becomes, I might seriously consider taking that and just bombing it into a Zench list.
I think it's probably a really good choice right now. And Finn is called out in the chat as well, Hallowheart. So if you think about Hallowheart and Zench, just two of the many magic casting armies, you could pop their heroes almost automatically if you get 2 or 3 wizards in range and doing D3 plus 3, maybe D3 plus 4. Automatically, there goes all the wizards, and in one hero phase, you've shut down a potential nightmare.
Yeah. It can be really strong.
It's crazy, and I think it's 40 points from memory, 40 or 50 points. It's not a great deal of investment.
Expensive ones, no.
Yeah.
The thing about this item though is it keeps KO. I won't say relevant, but it keeps KO interested in every single book that ever comes out ever again.
Yeah. So
like, oh, what's the end of the spells? Oh, cool.
New book comes out. What does this mean for us though? So with the Lumineth, they might have some really nifty endless spells, or Seraphon with the spawning pool.
Yeah. Praying for a spawning pool from Seraphon.
I think that there's a Zench one endless spell at the moment that gives you that if it kills an enemy unit, it turns them into a chaos spawn. So that's how you're adding chaos spawn to your hell cannons. We're just gonna slowly turn this into a chaos army.
right.
Some great narrative corrupted Kharadon Overlord stuff.
All right, your
happening
definition
there.
narrative and my definition narrative is very different, but I think yes, you're right. Look at all of the endless spells because you're not restricted just to Grand Alliance Order. You have access to literally every endless spell now and into the future. You can't access prayers. You can't take like the Hex Gorgeous Skulls, but any endless spell is up for your grabs.
Exactly. And I know we have mentioned Spell Bottle to death, but the chemists do have another second good one as well, and that is the vent plates. The vent plates are technically drink, really, really good because everyone asked in the FAQ if they could just tell us if it was just once and then done, or if you just popped it and it lasted for the rest of the game, and they didn't answer. So at the moment, you pop it and that lasts for the rest of the game. And it's I made a 4-item list. If I wanted to stick that in. So you can make a heal, like a tanky boat kind of build. Like it's not even in a barrack; it's in a custom barrack. So you can get the extra shares to make it tankier. You can take the once per game D3 heal, and then throw on a -1 to hit on the boat for the entire game. Throw a few gun haulers in as well, and you can really make the kind of tanky boat build. Just because they didn't FAQ this, but it is actually really good.
Yeah,
cool. Krohn?
This is one of the few abilities relics that works in a boat, which is important. Yeah, is good to call out because a lot of them don't, and this one does.
Perfect. The last customizations we have is going to come to our ship. So you have the Great Engine Works, which if a Kharadon Overlord's army has any sky vessels, one of those vessels can have a Great Engine Work. And we do know that in one of those barracks, you guys can tell me which one, you can take an additional one. And you also get additional one for each War Scroll battalion you have in your army. So each ship can't have more than one engine work on it. And you can't duplicate them. So you've got a couple of options, and there are different versions for both the Ironclad, the frigate, and the gun hauler.
Yeah, and that what you just discussed is why another reason why battalions are so important in the book. Yeah, I know I keep banging on about it, but there are so many different reasons for taking a battalion. And
no, it's worth calling out because some armies don't rely on battalions. This certainly one is getting more than just the additional command point and additional artifact.
Yeah, exactly. And it's why just keep mentioning it because there is just so much like use for it. It's also another reason why the frigates of the 3 boats are sometimes not viewed quite the same way because there's quite a big difference between the Ironclads, the frigates, and the gun hauler ones. So it might be that they're being tarred with the brush of their list isn't quite as good as the other 2.
That's also true. The frigates is they're pretty underwhelming. One of them's all right if you're fighting Nighthaunt, but the other 2.
Well, let's talk Ironclads first because it's on the screen. So we'll get to frigates next, but Ironclads is first. You've got 6 choices. The last word, you've got hull plates, you've got buoyancy aids, you've got chutes, you've got omnic scopes, and you've got dead rams or battle rams. Any of these come to mind? I know certainly we've talked about some, Gary, you mentioned 2 Ironclads in some of the lists that you're building right now, especially, you're talking Tennis Die, but is there any Ironclad great engine somethings that engine works that you'd call out and why?
You can just call them Boatefacts.
Boatefacts, yes. Let's go with the Boatefacts.
Well, me and Krohn have like a favorite each, I think, and they lead into very different play styles. I personally like the battle ram because I go for the aggressive plays a lot more.
So So if this model makes a charge move, you pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of the model and roll the number of dice equal to the charge roll that the charge move made. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So make a 10-inch charge, roll 10 dice. On a 4+, it's mortal wounds.
It's an overcharge.
Yeah. And it it also combos nicely with the
bombs.
The
Skyhook.
Skyhook, the Great Skyhook, which gives you +2 to your charge, which counts for this as well.
Yeah, great.
You can really lean into it. I mean, if you really wanted to lean into it, you can do
Cogs,
girders, all that jazz. I don't think it'd be worth it, but you can do it if you want. But you
can do the bombs, and they got the bombs as well on the ships, right? We can do D3 mortal wounds on after the charge has been made.
Yeah, on Ironclads, that's a 2+. So
yeah, all right.
Suddenly you've got this kind of like I said earlier in the show, you've got a combat build that doesn't really have anything to do with combat. So you shoot them in the face, point blank range, and then charge them and do respectable damage in combat as well. It turns the kind of Zilfin list into a hybrid list. It's probably kind of like 75-25, but it gives a good combat game in those matchups where shooting isn't really working, or not working as well. So things like eels. This item alone almost makes the eel or the Adneth Deepkin matchup much more bearable.
Yeah. Krohn?
So my favorite is the ebullient buoyancy aid. Which basically it lets you have as many models as you want in your Ironclad and still teleport it around. Still fly high, which is how you get your 20 Thunderer, Death Star, and Chemists and everything in the Ironclad. Put it where you want, on a flank of the enemy, and just start shooting. With all the shares, you can put 20 Thunderers, you can put 15 and 10 Arcanauts and still teleport around. You could put anything in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll call out the last word because it's a favorite of mine, being a handgunner friendly rule set, where basically so my handgunners in the free people, if you end a charge within 3 inches in the enemy charge phase, I get to shoot you before combat starts. And the last word gives you the same rule. So at the end of the enemy charge phase, you can pick one unit that ends a charge move within 3 of the model. This model can shoot at the time with its sky cannon, its sky hook, or its volley cannon. So you can potentially kill some models before they start combat.
And it's perfectly valid because, as we discussed, the sky cannon is perfect, really good.
Yep.
I don't think we really mentioned it when we went into Ironclads, but Ironclads don't degrade with their shooting. So it doesn't matter if you're on 4 wounds or 1 wound left. If you take last word, you're shooting in the face with the full complement of 6 shots.
Yeah.
Brutal. Now we can talk about frigates. Now we can tell me how garbage frigates traits are. So you've got the scope, you've got the shoots, and you've got the sky mines. Would you guys put a botafact on a frigate? Any of those tickle your fancy, or no, let's move along to gun haulers?
No. If you had to, you take sky mines, I think.
Yeah, if you had to take sky mines and do the old Ironclad supremacy mine and just do D6 mortal wounds to a big flying thing that charged you, but add 2 to its move characteristics. Oh, it got 12-inch move. It doesn't need that. And if a sky vessel destroyed, the rolling ones and things dying is not what kills the models. It's the fact that people are surrounding your boat and you can't get out is what kills your models.
Yeah.
And sky mines, by the way, once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you pick one enemy unit that can fly, is within 6 of the model, and roll a dice. On a 2 or a 3, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 4+, it suffers D6 mortal wounds. So not bad, very situational. But I can see why you may want to put your botafact onto a gun hauler instead. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe you want to put them both on the Ironclad. So your botafacts, you've got 3 options for the gun haulers. You've got that's the longest artifact name in the world. Let's just call it the MK4. You've got the spar torpedo, and then you've got the God damn, what's with these long ones? The coal beards. Any of those stand out?
I love the name of these things. They're so cool.
They're great. They're just long. They're long for a content creator who's been filming for almost 3.25 hours.
Yeah, just shouting in a game like, "I'm going to activate my Ingrid-class surge injection engine Mark IV." Yeah, the compartments, the collapsible compartments, they're really good. They let you put 5 people in one of these things, which can either be, your 5 Thunderers or your the privateers from the Shadespire Warband, or the 4 Endrin Riggers and the Admiral.
All the party boats.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're all good. That's why gun holders, to a certain degree, are really good, because you can stick a gun holder in and give it one of these things, and it will work to your game plan, no matter what game plan you really have. I prefer the spar torpedo myself, but that's because I've gone for an aggressive, hyper aggressive hybrid list. So the spar torpedo turns the boat into a combat threat.
On 2+, you're doing D6 mortal wounds. That could be brutal.
Yeah, combined with the 4-up D3 mortal wounds as well, combined with the shooting. Yeah, it all adds up.
It.
Even the movement one, the extra move is still decent. It's probably the one of the 3 that I take the least often, but it's still not bad. Because you can get a gun holder up to like a 24-inch move and still shoot.
Yeah.
Can't sniff at stuff like
that. All right. We are on the final stretch here. We've got just some final thoughts and rationale. Do you have anything you want to add, Krohn, to the gun holder discussion? Any more additional stuff?
The artifacts? No, I think we've covered it. Yep.
All right.
Compartments is good. I guess the other thing you can do with the compartments with Zilfin is you can put the 1 chemist in them, teleport the thing within range of your enemy to deploy a rat trap or whatever damaging endless spell you have, and then in your movement phase you can teleport back and get to relative safety if you need to.
Yeah, you can do the budget version of the. If for whatever reason you're not going boat heavy, maybe you've gone rigger heavy or whatever.
So you guys have started moving towards where I wanted to go, which was we've built a list. You guys have gone through very thorough understanding of the battle line, heroes, interactions with ships. We've talked about customizing through battalions and allegiance abilities and sub-allegiance abilities and artifacts and traits and endless spells and bottles. We've gone through a lot. I guess the last thing that I want to understand is we've done this list prep. I've got a list in front of me. How do I get the most out of this army? From your experience and your wide range of experience, what hints, tips, and tricks would you give me as either a new player or someone who's looking to better my performance as a tournament player? So it's more of an open-ended question. Let's bounce between a few ideas. Teach me how to be a good KO player. Gary, I'll start with you first.
With something Krohn said earlier, which is more than any other army I've ever played, you need to know what your opponent is doing. You need to know what their win conditions are. You need to know what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and what they're going to do it with. And then you kill the thing. So that's going to make all that happen. So a lot of lists all revolve around a spell here, a character there, or a buff there, or a unit here. You need to know your opponent's army inside out to the point that you can just cut that bit out of the equation and give yourself an advantage off the bat.
How would I do that? How would I learn what they do?
Read War Scroll Builder. Ask your opponent. Read the list.
Make sure they tell you before the game. Wait, all right. What is your army like? So, I see a wizard. What does that wizard do? What does that spell do? If you're not sure, so what does your allegiance do? What does your sub allegiance do?
What's your favorite model that I should shoot off?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you read the list and you go, all right, that you've got 3 wizards, and that one's got that one's got that one, and the other one's got the teleport spell. Right, okay. And you're setting up, and you go, right, which one's got the teleport spell? And he'll point at this one. You go, right, okay. That mofo has to die, and then the game plan kind of blossoms from there. And that's where you get the hard games, because obviously if someone knows that that's going to be where you're kind of going. I mean, this is my list, maybe more than Krohn's. I don't know, but you identify those key pieces, and then you make.
I 100% had to do that at CanCon. Just every opponent, just what's doing the stuff. I was like reading their list. As I was walking to the table, I was bringing up their list on Best Coast pairings and looking at the 1D4 Chan article and being like, okay, what is this? What are we doing here? And then so I have got some idea before the game. Okay, so I read something about that goblin boss being really good. What does he do? I was like, oh, that's my lead goblin boss. He shifts the moon around and he teleports my stuff. And I'm like, okay, I see. Then he hid it behind a rock, so I couldn't shoot it. But anyway, there was a when I did it wrong, it cost me hugely. Missing a wizard. I didn't see the wizard. And I was like, it's fine. I can kill Archaon in my turn. Oh no, there's a wizard and he's got reroll saves. Okay.
Yeah, I think you've raised some very valid points, and there is a plethora of information, whether it's looking at your Age of Sigmar app. If you're at a tournament, there are articles like 40 Chan and Faction. There's a whole range of series on the internet you can look up for some high level information. But more importantly, you can ask them. The chat gang has thrown up some really good questions. How fast do things move? What can modify your moves and charges? Can you teleport? What's giving you the buffs? What's in the battalion and what is it doing for you? Do you have rend? Do you have mortal wounds? What some of these spells do? How many drops are you? These are just some questions you could potentially ask to get a better understanding of what you might prioritize for targets, or how you may move your boats around, because it sounds like you guys will get punished if you make mistakes, because you've got such low model counts and you're relying on certain things to go off.
Yeah, it's an army where you're literally operating with no safety nets. There's none of this kind of Mortet guard kind of, okay, I'll just reroll saves at it, and if you don't kill all of them, I'll just bring them all back. There's none of this kind of get out of jail free kind of mechanics. So, you've killed all my heroes, I'll just bring some more on. You've literally got less models than everyone else and no way of replenishing them, and comparatively squishy, and unless you're really careful. I mean, like, I won a game at the Heat against Krohn with 4 bloodthirsters in a battalion, and I had to do it by measuring so precisely and knowing their movement phase. Like, how far can you move? Right, you can move, I don't know what it was, 12 inches, and you can try and charge, and then you can pile in outside of 6, and you can do all that, and you have to work out these little sweet spots on the battlefield. And you go, right, if I'm here, you literally get in a marker and go, if I'm here, you physically cannot charge me, and you have to kind of go to your opponent and go, do you agree? Yes. Okay. So at this spot, you move your models up to that spot, I physically cannot be charged. And you're doing a lot of these kind of sweet spots around the table, going, right, this spot here means that I can do this, and this, and you can't do that. So in that example, I was like, right, if I'm here, one of your bloodthirsters can charge me, and the other 3 can't. So therefore, I'm going to shoot the one that can technically charge me with a 10-inch charge roll. And then even if you get the next turn, you can't charge me with the other 3. And you blow off that bloodthirster. And as it turned out, I blew off the second one behind it as well. So you had 2 bloodthirsters that we already pre-arranged that you couldn't get anyway into combat. And then he won the priority, and he was like, oh, right, so I can't do anything because you're in exactly the spot where I can't get to you, and I can just run towards you, and then you get the next turn. And even if I'd got the priority, because I'd made these specific measurements, I would probably given him the turn, knowing that he couldn't do anything after that.
Yeah.
To be doing, it's like carpentry, you have to like measure twice and then cut the head off once.
Yeah, it's not forgiving. It's not forgiving that you're gonna. Yeah, precision is key.
Unfortunately, it's really not a beginner-friendly army. You need to be aware of how the game plays and how generally what your opponent can do. So you kind of need to be a little bit aware of all the battle tomes essentially, but it is very rewarding when you get it right. It is very rewarding.
I don't want people to think that they need to know every single rules interaction in Age of Sigmar. Knowing what things can do and getting experience and playing opponents and learning from that helps. Even simple things like just understanding what's going to kill your KO units the most, which is going to be rend and high rend. So anything with rend 2, you especially want to take out, or any mortal wound dealing damage you want to take out. You want to know the longest range threats. And if you can just ask us a couple of questions without knowing every single army, that will help. And then as you play and you interact with more opponents, you'll get better and better with that. But yes, absolutely, you're rewarded by experience and you're rewarded by understanding what makes an army tick.
And not even offensively, but defensively as well. So like the Slaves of Darkness matchup at the moment it's a tricky one. But they've got so many reroll because their reroll saves is reroll saves. It's not in combat, it's just across the board. And that all comes off the wizards. And those wizards tend to be the same mark, and so they are given off aura effects in Slaves of Darkness as well. So, and the first time I played it, I didn't really appreciate how key those characters were. So I was kind of churning through all the knights and stuff, thinking, right, if I get the knights done, I can just walk onto the objectives. But then suddenly the knights didn't die, and suddenly like, oh, maybe I should have actually just killed the wizards. Suddenly those knights fall over a lot quicker, and then when I charge them, because they're only getting the plague touch buff if they're near the wizards, because they're the same mark. So suddenly all these things kind of you boil it down and go, right, yeah. So next time I play it, I have to shoot 3 wizards off in turn 1, or over over 2 turns, and making sure I've not been kind of countered in subsequent turns as well, to then have a chance to then kind of roll over the knights and make them dealable, because until those 3 characters died, the rest of the army was nigh on untouchable. So it's defensive as well as offensively. It's not like what can kill me, it's like, well, what actually lets me kill you easier.
What's giving the rerolls to save, what's making you move faster, it's understanding just the different synergies within an army, and simply asking will help. Outside of that, outside of experience, outside of synergies, is there any other advice? Obviously, precise measuring and understanding, even the intent that you just mentioned earlier about, if I move the ship here, understanding the threat range of the model. The Bloodthirster moved X, then it has a charge range of X. So by moving this total distance, you physically in the next turn can't move your model into combat. Yes? Cool. So just really measuring that out and understanding the space of the board. In fact, that fly high gives you an ability that almost no other army does. It's just this pure movement shenanigans.
And making sure both people understand that this is a thing, so that won't become an argument in the next turn.
You don't want to win by gotcha hammer, do you?
And likewise, you probably want to tell people, you probably want to be very clear about fly high. That's probably a rule that is very unique to most armies. You can't do that, especially when you're in combat. So it's worthwhile calling that out and making sure your opponent understands it, so they don't have a feel bad moment with you.
Yeah. Let the Sylvaneth player know that yes, his battalion stops people from retreating, but fly high is not a retreat, so it's not gonna work.
Any other advice? Any other things? You're obviously giving me 3.5 hours of amazing insights and intel into your amazing merchant minds.
I mean,
any final things?
Have we reached like the longest faction focus yet?
No.
Wow.
No. I mean, no offense, but this book is not nearly as deep as, let's say, Stormcast Eternals or Cities of Sigmar, which has probably 4 times the amount of units that you guys have. But
Yeah,
there's a lot of intricacies and nuances that this book has that I think Gary had said earlier. It's very complicated to build a really good army, but once you've got it, it's gonna be awesome. But finding these little nuances between your amendments and your artifacts and the way you customize your boats. It's probably a lot of list tweaking.
Yeah. As I think as just as important as they were last book, screening very important. You want to have a screen in front of your boats, even turn 1. So I made a mistake early in list building. It's like, all right, it is playing against Flesh Eater Courts. I'm gonna put my Archnaut in the far corner of the board here, and then teleport out with it in my turn and start shooting things. The Terror guy still gets to you. The Terror guy still walks up with enough movement, speed, and just charges the Ironclad, murders the Ironclad turn 1. I found you really need to have something, be it Endrin Riggers or Arcanauts or whatever you can spare. Have it beyond range 3 of your Ironclad, or so that there's something that these big units can hit before they hit your important units.
Yeah.
And sometimes you really need to be precise with that. If possible, you could put these things 9 inches out to stop things being able to teleport in, like Nighthaunt being able to teleport in, charge, change host, yeah. Clearing up as much space as possible in front of the boat to allow you to then, in your turn, teleport out, fly high where you need to, and start winning the game on your terms.
Good advice. Sound advice. I think I've tapped all of the knowledge. I'm sure you guys could talk for about 1 million hours on this. And luckily, there are Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups and probably little merchant areas that you guys are all talking about, trading Aether Gold somewhere. If people wanted to learn more, is there anything else you guys want to share before we kind of wrap things up? I'm sure there's lots you guys can share, but anything burning?
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So if people want to chat to you guys and they want to, learn more about your adventures across the mortal realms, Gary, where can they find you? God damn it.
In the chats, in the WhatsApp chats. I'm not using Twitter as much, but you can always DM me on Twitter if you want. I'm trying to remember what my Twitter thing is. Yeah, it's Gary P at Goddammit Gary. So.
I'll add it in the show notes later, but worthwhile following you. You're a good man. And Krohn, you are always giving your amazing advice with all of your admirals on an amazing podcast. So where can they find you and continue hearing more from you?
Yeah, so we're doing a podcast where we just talk about KO. It comes out roughly once a month, I'm going to say, whenever we can, really. That's on a channel called Archnaut Admiral, and tomorrow we're actually going to be having an interview with Adeptus Dices, who won a 6-round tournament up in Canada with the old book, and see what he thinks about the new book.
Awesome. So make sure to check that out. Go subscribe to the channel and make sure you're following the podcast if you're not already doing so, because you're obviously here. You've listened to 3.5 hours of us talk. You must love KO. Why would you not want to continue your love of KO? And as always, you know where to find me. I'm the coach. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. So I'm all on the interwebs. If you like this content, make sure to check out subscribe and like, and shout out to Kron's dog, who has been amazing fourth voice on the show. But if you also want to know a bit more about what you're, that's all right.
It's very excitable.
He's excited about Zilfin. But every month I'm doing a show called Emerging Meta, where I'm highlighting all of what the people are building in AOS Reminders. and kind of bringing that together to show you insights. And in January, and I'm sure in subsequent months, I will share with you guys how people are building KO lists. So if you want to see some of the most popular artifact choices, unit choices, sub-allegiances, whatever it might be, it's something that I'm discussing. So do check out Emerging Meta when you can. Gary, Krohn, thank you both very much. I appreciate your time. I'm on Discord and all that stuff. It'll be in the show notes. Just check that out. Guys, thanks very much. Have a good rest of your day. And is there like a saying for KO, like up and at 'em, or I don't know? What? I don't know. Don't shoot me.
There's always a loophole if you look for it.
All right. No hell cannons in KO.
Chaos list.
No hell cannons in KO. All right, see you guys. Let's log off.
Yeah.
All right.